check in on? Anything to share?
No, I just, yeah, I suppose a bit to think about in that context of that, and yeah, I suppose say can't deviate, but like, I don't know.
Well, it's challenging. You have these worldly structures, and the Jedi were trying to do the right thing, but they, and then as soon as you get a council and you get, now we've got a political agenda, and they're now running a war. It gets your principles. It's very difficult to just be totally spiritual. And well, actually, we're not really going to worry about any of this, because you're now engaged in the level of form, and it's about power and the strategic decisions. And you could see how that order, from a spiritual order, I mean, they had a temple and stuff, but it had become maybe more of a political one. It was like, this is about some kind of political governance, and they were in competition then with the Senate. It's like another power structure. So quite well done. Again, George Lucas writes that all in. It's like, well, this is how the world works. You've got all these complexities, political dynamics, geopolitical dynamics, control, and the Jedi sort of got immersed in that. And then Anakin's like, but you guys are also out of integrity. You're not holding to the to the Jedi code, which they weren't entirely. And so that made his confusion worse, because as Palpatine pointed out, oh, what, the Jedi don't have an agenda? Well, they did. He was right. They weren't being totally selfless. They were like, well, we want to take charge here, and they would say, well, it's for the good of everyone. But is it always? Is anyone who takes charge really being selfless? So the true masters, Jesus and Buddha, they really didn't involve themselves really on that level. They just remained on the spiritual level. They would teach, but they didn't get involved in political structures. And Jesus's one act, which is interesting, and they went into the temple, and then he got involved, because he was like, okay, I'm going to throw the tables up. And that was why they crucified, I believe. Maybe they had the intention before, but that was the catalyst for sure. Because he then got involved in a worldly structure, and he resisted it, and he said, no, this is wrong. So you could argue, well, he shouldn't have done that, but then the whole crucifixion, resurrection thing wouldn't have played out as it did. So I think I don't think he did know what he was doing. He went, this is a mechanism for this whole drama to unfold, and that's how this teaching will come into a world teaching. He knew that if he resurrected, that would just be the final seal on his teachings, and that his disciples would then believe so much that they would then go out, and they would preach it unto their death. Some of them got crucified and killed as well, because they did that, and he'd shown the way. So I think he had a master plan. It wasn't necessarily about changing the structure. It was like, okay, if I do this, then this will happen, and the whole thing will unfold as it should, according to a divine plan. But he never tried to take power. He never said, right, we're starting a rebellion, which is what they want. A lot of people wanted him to. Right, we're going to take up arms. We're going to fight the Romans. We're going to overcome this. He never did that. Wisely so, because if you go down that road, then you end up being it's very dualistic. You're in the ego. We want worldly power versus them. Now it's us versus them, and the ego sucked you into its game. And he just transcended that, even in that situation where it would have been easy to get sucked into the duality of it. He just said, no, it's only God and his kingdom, and you must only forgive. Doesn't matter what people do to you. You must only forgive. That was and he demonstrated that in the crucifixion. so well. So really a master teaching from a master, which is, I think, why we're studying his words, because he really did walk the talk. He didn't allow himself to get sucked into all that lower stuff, politics, and which would have been, it's tempting, I guess. And you saw Anakin's temptation was worldly power, wasn't it? Well, he had two. He had the fear of loss, and he had the desire for worldly power. And those were his two fatal flaws. He didn't want to lose what he had in terms of his special relationship, but he lost it anyway, because his desire for power then actually meant that that relationship. He thought he could do all these things and kill, and have it unaffected. And then she was like, "But I don't know you anymore. Who are you? This is not the man I fell in love with." And and then he was really angry with himself, really, but he projected it onto her and onto Obi-Wan. Said, "I hate you." No, you've done it yourself, Anakin, because you listened to the wrong voice. If you simply said, "I will stay according to the Jedi principles. It's not about my own worldly power. I don't need to be a master. I don't need titles. I'm here as a servant. I will serve in whatever respect." But he was like, his ego got so bigged up, because this Palpatine had told him, "Oh no, you're the chosen one. You've got power. Blah blah." And it's like it was all egoic. The ego sucked him into that, and then he didn't want to lose. He didn't want to lose what he had. But you have to choose. You can't have love and hatred and fear and anger. These don't go together in any way, shape, or form. So fear of loss and then desire for power were his fatal flaws, which Palpatine played on. The dark side finds the weaknesses, doesn't it? So okay, I know how to play you. Fear of loss is your one, desire for power is the other, and he kept dropping those into the conversations, didn't he? So it was a good lesson in like ego temptation and choices. If he'd made some different choices, he'd simply said, "Look, the truth is true. The Jedi code is true, absolutely. And although the Jedi might be wavering here, I'm not going to waver. I can stay true to my principles." He might have just, maybe the best thing to do would have been just to go, "You know what? I'm just out of here. Bye, everyone. I'm going with my wife, and we're going to go and we're going to have our baby, and I'm just out of this whole mess. I don't want to be drawn into it."
Well, then you'd have to leave the Jedi.
Yeah, maybe. But he still would have been, ultimately it's like, okay, I'm out of here, because this is too complicated. Split, maybe that would have been the best decision for him in that instance, because he was getting so embroiled and he couldn't see clearly. It's like, okay, I need time out here. Let us go away for a few months out of all this drama and remove myself and just have some peace and some quiet, and connect again with my wife and have our baby, and just okay, let's just time out, rest, which is the theme I wanted to talk about actually today. This idea of rest. He got himself so embroiled, so confused in worldly affairs, that he just lost touch with who he was, what he stood for, what were his principles. And so I would have recommended for him, take some time out, go. She said, "Why don't we just go? Why don't we go away, leave all this behind, and just be together and have our baby?" And maybe that would have been the best thing. Gone, okay, you know what? I'm going to go. Let's get in a cruiser, which they could zap across the universe in, no time at all.
Zap across the universe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Intergalactic travel is no problem. So let's go to this other planet, and I'll just take some time out, and I'll reflect on this, and I'll and that probably would have given him some clarity. But he got embroiled. He got embroiled in the whole situation, and he allowed himself to be swayed to the one side, which looked, on the face of it, some of Palpatine's arguments were, had validity, didn't they? He was saying, well, the Jedi, the Jedi are, and they've asked you to do something out of integrity. They've asked you to spy on me, haven't they? Yes, they had. And so now he's betraying the guy who'd helped him. So it was all mixed in. There was the dark and the light, these interweaving patterns, shadows across the mind, as Jesus said in one of our recent lessons. And he was just getting really confused about it. He just couldn't tell the difference in what was the dark and what was the light. And then finally he made that choice, and he went, okay, he disarmed I think he cut the guy's hand off, Mace Windu, and then it was like, okay, all of his resistance went, and he just went, okay, I surrender, I surrendered to what have I done? And then it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go the whole way here, because I can't see a way back, that I've done this. And I was like, okay, all right, that conflict, he just gave in, and he kind of surrendered to the dark side. Because I think he was just tired, like the conflict in his mind was too much. He was like, I can't deal with this, like this constant conflict between these two. I have to choose one. And then he thought he could resolve the conflict by choosing the dark side, which, and unfortunately he couldn't. As the series plays out, you see, he was a tormented soul. He was stuck in this, dark prison, really, as Darth Vader, and he was tormented. And he couldn't say he was happy, because and then Palpatine played on his guilt. He was like, well, you killed her. He's like, but now he's stuck in this in this prison, and he's made his choice, and he's like, well, I suppose I just have to go with it. And then eventually his son has to come and redeem him and help him out of his prison. Anyway, we'll watch. I think we'll watch the next one. So it's the kind of the hero's journey. That was an anti-hero's journey, which is quite interesting, because you don't see that often in movies. It was like the descent into darkness in the course of the movie, and you couldn't really end it there. That would have just been like the trilogy continued, because it was a series of 6. By all means, invite Leland to the next one if he wants to join us. He's into Star Wars. It's interesting to watch, and then actually discuss these principles. Because for me, that's the most interesting thing. It's like all the drama and the sci-fi and all of that, but it's actually the subtleties of what's the plot and the characters and the relationships and the dynamics between the ego and the spirit. And that's what's really interesting in these movies.
And I think also the last trilogy as well, with Kylo Ren in Solo, and that kind of and that kind of connection to Rey, and I was reading up
and they all have that. I mean, to be fair to them, in the last series, they didn't completely, they had that. They did have the interpersonal dynamics and the light versus they did have that. And they brought Palpatine back because I suppose they needed a big baddie in the end. Someone had to, and it was like, well, he's the obvious, he's the obvious choice.
Yeah, but they didn't focus on him too much. It was really that kind of more that, there was more focus on Kylo Ren antagonist and his complexity around that.
So he was the the tormented Dark Lord then, and he was also split. He was like, he had the light, he had the dark, and he'd chosen the dark, but the light was still there, and he could be brought back, which happened. And then you see, what's the difference between the light and the dark? It's a decision. That's all. It's so simple. Like in a moment, you just decide and you go, okay. No, no more. I'm not going to follow that path anymore. I'm just a decision. And then, then you're redeemed. And then I think he ascended at the end, which was a bit like, I thought they could have carried on. It's like, okay, so they finally, and then he disappears. It's like, surely you could like let him stay around a little bit longer, maybe.
Yeah.
For the next installment, I don't know. Maybe they'll bring him back. But he's ascended. So, but that I must say that one didn't make sense. I was like, no, that doesn't really. Like I can understand if you've had years, so Luke ascends and Obi-Wan, but he just like kind of gone, okay, I've just had a shift. I was like, he's not ready for ascension yet.
No.
And then he disappears, and he's finally like connected with his soulmate, and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna boom, I'm just gonna disappear. So they could have done it better. They could have gone, the two of them took on Palpatine, and the two of them took him out instead of just her. And it would have been like male and female, they could have, I think maybe that would have been a better.
I can't remember that ending. Did they not both take him out?
No. He disappeared. So Palpatine flew him away. So went, and he just dropped him down a shaft. So then Rey was left to confront Palpatine on her own. But
I thought I remember they both, both of them were confronting maybe the other Sith. I don't know.
No, they both confronted him, and then he just made Kylo Ren disappear. He used his powers, and you're going down a shaft. So then Rey was left, and then she had to face him, because maybe they're like, it's got to be a one-on-one. I don't know, but I think it would have been better if the two of them had done it. And then they both survived and been like, actually, it's kind of happy ending. He hasn't just disappeared off the planet. I mean, he's not ready to disappear off the planet. He's just come into some kind of sanity. He's just learned some powerful lessons. Like, that's like him ascending was like, no. I can understand the others, who they'd had years of mastery and so on. But then he disappears along with this, and it was like, no. That was whoever wrote that, they didn't quite get that right. They should have had the last sequence with the two of them. But they took him on, and they crossed their lightsabers, and they went, right, we're going to take you on, and then they destroyed Palpatine together. And then they could have had a sequel, because the two of them would have been in the story stuff. That's how I would have written. But anyway, no doubt they had all these options, and they decided, someone has to make these decisions. But in the last scene, I remember, like when she takes him on, she's like down and out, and then all the masters, Luke and Obi-Wan and Yoda, Qui-Gon, they all saying, get up, Rey, come. So she gets up, and Palpatine's like, I am all of the Sith. And she goes, and I am all of the Jedi. It's such a great line, because you realize, like, you are all of them. If you choose that path, you choose to be the light, you have the power of all the masters in you, because it's one power. It's the power of the light. You are Jesus, you are Buddha, you are Lao Tzu, Lao Tzu, you are all of them. Krishna, because they all had the same power, which, is quite inspiring. It's like, all of that is available to you. It wasn't like they had a power you don't have. They just chose to live it, and now they've been immortalized in history, and there was some kind of, special demigods, but actually they were just people who tapped in, and they were like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to this voice of the Holy Spirit, and only that voice. And that will give me a power and a presence and a wisdom in this world that is available to everyone. It's not some special power that's only ordained on a few, which was really, I was listening to Alan Watts the other day, right? Jesus's what happened subsequent to his death. And he said what they did was they pedestalized him, kind of word, but they put Jesus on a pedestal, and they said only he can do that. He's the Son of God. Only he can do that. You don't have access to that power. Which was a way, of course, of controlling the masses. Because if you say to people, there's nothing that you can't do that Jesus couldn't do. You have that power, which was his message. It's actually in the Bible, but that didn't really get translated, to any kind of mass teaching. They made him into something special. Only he can do this. Oh, now you're going to worship him. I mean, that was not his teaching at all. At all. It was a complete distortion of it. So that you could keep people under control, so that they wouldn't go, yeah, I'm the Christ. Couldn't have a whole lot of people going, I'm the Christ. That wouldn't have done. Because how do you control them? You can't. So they just changed the message so that it could become now the official religion of the Roman Empire, and it was used as a mechanism of control rather than of liberating people, saying, well, like, actually all these control structures are egoic, and I'm the Christ, and I have that direct connection with spirit, and I will behave accordingly. I don't have allegiance to anyone in this world. So yeah, interesting.
It is.
Yeah, well, that's, we can learn a lot from movies. They reflect. A good movie, is a little microcosm of life. It has these messages of, this is how the world works. Can help you to learn more how the world works and maybe make better decisions yourself. I mean, for me, that's like just, the Revenge of the Sith is a warning. It's like, do not go down that path. Don't make the same mistakes Anakin made, because it leads to darkness and despair. Don't honor your fear.
Okay, yeah. The mistakes you're saying is giving into it fear.
You can learn from someone else's mistakes in a movie. You don't have to experience them yourself. You can say, well, what were his mistakes? Fear of loss. He was attached to the past. He didn't want to lose someone who was special to him, so he valued a special relationship over truth. He valued fear of loss. He had this attachment to a form. Any relationship is a form. That's all it is. He was like, I can't live without it. Okay. And so he denied then the light. Yoda said to him, but do not fear death, because when someone goes into the force, that's just it's a transformation. It's not really death. But he made it real. He made death real. It's like, oh, I don't want to lose death, loss, and that all took him down a very dark path. And then he had desire for power. He wanted to be the master. He wanted to be the head of the universe. That was his plan. He was like, well, I'll take out the Chancellor Palpatine, and I'll become the Chief Lord, because it's ambition. And that took him down a dark path.
Where did he say he'll take out the Dark Lord?
He said, remember in that last scene where Padme was with him in the very appropriately, like in hell basically, and he's trying to explain to us, but we can, I'm more powerful than him. We can rule the universe together. And she's just like, what is this? I don't want to rule the universe together. I just want to have your love and have our baby together and just have a nice, have a connection. I'm not into like ruling the universe. But that was his ego that hijacked the whole thing. And his plan was, okay, I'll learn from this Dark Lord, and I'll acquire his power, and I'll become more powerful, and then I'll take him out. Which is, of course, what they all do. There's no loyalty on the dark side. It's like, only one. Dark side is like there can only be one top dog, and everyone else must serve it. That's the dark side's intention. I mean, old Palpatine, he killed his master. Even admits it. He said, I killed him in his sleep. Oh, great loyalty there. He teaches you everything he knows, and then you kill him. But that's the ego for you. There's no loyalty. And anyone who's loyal to him, he was like, oh well, I'll get Lord Vader to come and take care of you. Just kill them. So there's like no loyalty at all. They've helped you, they've supported you. I would just wipe them out.
The Count Dooku, yeah.
Yeah, and the other guys at the end, those guys who listen to him, he's like, oh no, Chancellor, I'll send my apprentice and he'll come and take care of you. And what he really meant was, well, he's going to come and take you out, not take care of you. But that's the ego, it's death. And Anakin couldn't see through it. He thought that death could bring life. It's like, it's bizarre. Like, how do you think death is going to sustain or bring Padme back to life? So he'd already made it real. See, he'd already gone, okay, she's going to die, but I've got to bring her back. Instead of saying, but that's just a scenario. I've seen a scenario in my dream. If I make different decisions, it doesn't have to be. She doesn't have to die. He was like, no, it's already a done deal. She's going to die. So then I've got to know how to bring her back. This guy's going to give me the power. So he made it real in his mind. And you can't use fear and anger and guilt to bring life. It's impossible. It was a deception. The ego only knows about death, not life. And he said, love can't save us. It's like, well, yes, and the only thing that would have saved you was love. Love would have saved that relationship. If you'd really been loving, you might have gone, okay, I'm just out of all this politics. Let's go. She'd suggested to him, let's go have our baby, just get away from all of this. He could have done that. He said, yeah, okay, I'm just, I'm out of this. The Jedi are losing the plot. It's like, I don't want to be involved. I'm just gonna go and be husband and a
father.
Yeah. So interesting. Some as I said, there's always lessons to be learned for me. I mean, it's very relevant to my personal situation. So it's like, okay, well, maybe that would have been a better choice. If he just went, okay, enough of all of this, grandiose power politics, whatever. It's just like, I'm just going to go and lead a very simple, dedicated life for a while anyway. Maybe that wouldn't have been forever, but oh, interesting. And that would have been the loving thing to do, and that would have solved his dilemma. Love would have just resolved it, because then taking himself out of that situation, that she wouldn't have died in childbirth. There was no reason for it to. It happened because her heart was broken. Yeah. As I said, there's no physical reason, but she's lost the will to live. It's so emotionally painful for her that she can't, she doesn't want to carry on.
So it's hectic.
It can happen. I mean, there's no doubt. Emotions are enormously powerful. She just lost the will to live. She was like, I can't, obviously they were really, attached. It was like a soul connection, and then she just felt completely betrayed. Okay, so anything else to share? Any questions?
No, that's it for now. Thanks, Jono.
Okay. So I just wanted to talk quickly about prayer and today's quote. Now, I'm just going to bring that up. Let me know when you can see the screen. I found this quote yesterday. I thought to include this because my yesterday's quote was about prayer as well. So prayer is a bridge from your mess to God's rest. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
And so what he well, I mean, there's a number of ways of interpreting prayer, but what this prayer is it's really about letting go. Forgiveness or letting go is a bridge from your mess to God's rest. So it ties in beautifully with the previous lessons, the previous day's quote, where I quoted directly from the Course, where he says, let me read it. Prayer is a Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. Prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. Which is, powerful words.
Yeah.
So prayer is, the true prayer is simply that I can let go, I can surrender, and let go of whatever attachments, whatever negativity that I'm harboring. Which then, from in the context of this quote, if prayer is that, it is a bridge from your mess to God's rest. It's about letting go of forgiveness. And the only way you'll find this rest is through letting go. The mess that you've made, all the complexities, all the dramas in your mind, the only way out of that is to forgive or to let them go. Say, these are not real. These are of the ego, and I can let this all go. And I can find a way to simply rest in God. It's one of today's lessons. Through that, you will not find the peace of God unless you do that. So the true prayer is simply to say, "Let me forgive." True prayer is for forgiveness. Let me forgive all of my illusions, so that I may have the peace of God. And all the complexity and that movie was great to show that. Look at the complexity of the ego, and all the shifting, changing, weaving patterns. Very complex, very, very difficult, very confusing. And probably the best thing Anakin could have done would have been to go, okay, I'm timing out here. I need time out. I need time to reflect. I need time to contemplate, because I'm confused. And in a confused state, I'm not going to make the right decision. So let me just take some time out and leave they were in this big kind of cosmopolitan city. Leave that, go into the country, go back to a home planet, and just have some time and space. And that probably would have been his best bet in that situation. And that would have averted the whole thing. But obviously there wouldn't have been a movie. There wouldn't have been a drama. It would have been like, okay, it's now up to now. The whole thing had to play out that way to make a story. Because it's a drama, isn't it? It's all about the drama. If there's no drama, there's no story. No one wants to just watch someone who's like leading a very peaceful, quiet life. He's not doing anything. It's like there's no drama, there's no action. The action, it comes when the complexity of the ego. And then just in terms of what I said here, in terms of the value of rest, there's so much research that's come in the last 20, 30 years about the value of this, that you can't really ignore it. Like, there's no way you're going to be able to perform at a high level and actually function in this world without mastering this idea of rest. That you have these periods of rest doesn't mean you just take a holiday. Now, that's one way. But in your daily life and in your week, you have these times of rest, that you build that into your schedule. Because if you're just going flat out all the time, it's not a productive way of operating. In the end, it's actually very unproductive, because not only do you get burnt out, worn out, you actually make bad decisions. In that state, there's no openness to anything else. You can't see the wood for the trees. You make bad decisions. You get caught up in the drama, which is exactly what happened to Anakin. There wasn't enough quietness and silence. He got caught up, and he made very bad decisions as a result. Whereas if he'd gone, okay, I need to meditate here. I need to go away. I need to be quiet. I need to have some time away from all of this, would have been a different outcome. And mindfulness. Sorry, Kim?
Okay, maybe just finish, and I just want to ask about that in terms of the timeouts and the rest.
No, please ask. Yeah. Make it interactive.
Like in terms of timeout and rest, when it comes to like when we do our meditations, I mean, would you say all of them are rest? Because if you listen, okay, like I said, I think I said on Thursday, I was struggling. Like, when I feel like I was falling asleep sometimes, or like say doing the forgiveness meditation, would that be considered rest?
Yeah.
Or is rest like, because you're still kind of, engaged, so to speak. Or is it purely like just sitting in stillness, or just like
no rest can take a number of forms. You could call it active rest, I suppose, if you're meditating. It's taking yourself out of that busy doing pattern. So the mind's not in the same pattern of engaging in the world and trying to solve problems and working. It's a different mode. Rest is where you remove yourself from that and you go into an altered state. Your mind quiets. That may not be total sleep. It's just a quieting of the mind. The mind settles into like an alpha state. There's maybe still some thoughts, but far less thoughts. So any kind of mindfulness practice, meditation, is really just another word for it. Is going to help, because meditation is changing the mind. The body follows suit. People say it's resting the body. Well, not really. It's all about the mind. It's your mental state. And so when you take these little timeouts, whether it's a 5-minute breath break or 20-minute, half an hour meditation, you are altering your state. You're just taking some time to let go of all those normal thoughts, to come in, to go within, to quiet the mind. You're using in the workbook, you're using one of the lessons just to focus, to bring the mind into a single point of focus on that lesson, on the message, try and connect with it, feel it. And even if you do that for a couple of minutes, that's now a little bit of rest. You've just changed your state. And so the genius of what Jesus has designed is saying, okay, I've got a program here where you're going to do longer rest. In the morning, evening, normally just do a longer practice period. And you're going to do these short little breaks to rest frequently in the day, just to take yourself out of your normal pattern, interrupt that pattern, reset, and then you can carry on. As he's going, that's probably the most effective way of retraining your mind. So it's in this restful state most of the time, rather than in the inturbulated, busy, frenetic state that most people operate in. And it's the only way to really perform at a high level sustainably. You cannot perform at a high level sustainably if you don't rest, because you're drawing your energy and you need to replenish it. It makes complete sense, and yet a lot of people don't. The classic A-type driver personality who burns out, and that happens a lot. Like, no, go, and you just can't. Your body mind system can't cope with that, because you're actually in a state of elevated cortisol and adrenaline and stress all the time, and that's very deleterious to the body mind system. If you don't pause and and rest from that. I don't know if you watched that video that I sent today.
Yeah, I listened to it. Yes, this lady.
So, a really interesting, personal story. This woman was like classic A-type driver, achiever, and eventually she just collapsed. She said she went into the fetal position before a flight, and then she cried the whole way from Sydney to Los Angeles, 15 hours straight, crying. I mean, that's like that's years and years of not resting and not listening to your deeper mind and your soul, and just burnout. It's like you hit a wall and it's like Okay. And then she was like, I can't carry on. And she just took a year off and spent a year just sitting in the garden and observing this changing of the seasons. Huh?
Yeah, it's like,
but obviously for her, she needed that because
yes.
she'd done so much. She couldn't just go, oh, well, I'll take a few days out and I'll go back. She couldn't do that. She actually needed a whole, because she'd done it for so many years. Whereas if you just do it sustainably, you go, okay, yes, I'm operating in the world, but I have these periods of rest. I meditate, I exercise, I go for walks, I make sure you get enough sleep. But here's the thing, even if you don't get enough sleep, if you meditate, it's like a buffer. You can really because it's a substitute for sleep. So if you're doing an hour or two of meditation a day, and you only get, say, 5 hours one day, it really helps. You can still function at about 90% of your 95% of your capacity, because meditation is another form of rest. So it's really such a powerful tool, and anyone I can almost guarantee you, anyone who's performing sustainably at a high level is using some kind of meditation, rest, whatever that may be, because how else do you do it? There's these techniques work, and if you don't do them, then you end up getting burnt out, sick, stressed. It's not sustainable. All of these problems come from stress, really. We live in a world where we don't get taught. I mean, it should be something you get taught at school. Okay, here's how you rest. Instead of just go. We're going to teach you some mindfulness, which is just another word for meditation. Mindfulness really is just another word for Buddhists. The core Buddhist meditation practice, vipassana, is breath watching and observing the sensations in your body. That's exactly what mindfulness is. They've just rebranded and called it mindfulness. It's not new at all. It's been going for 2,500 years. But great, if they call it mindfulness and it means it's more accessible for people, I've got no problem with it. But they should be.
What do they call it? What do the Buddhists call it?
The sort of new age modern term is mindfulness. That's been around for the last 20, 30 years. A guy called John Kabat-Zinn coined it in the 70s. And it's become a big movement, but it's nothing more than the Buddhist vipassana. That's what it is. It's observe your breath, observe sensations. Well, that's Buddhist vipassana. If you do a vipassana course, that's the whole thing. So it's just, but it's doing it in a non-secular way. It's not Buddhism, not called that, and so it makes it maybe more accessible to people who don't necessarily want all of the Buddhist teachings that go along with it, but they just want to do the practice. So it's out there, and there's a whole load of research. I mean, I quoted all of this again because I thought, it's worth just going, look, science backs this up. There's all this research that is saying that integrating periods of rest and letting go. So this idea of letting go. Prayer is a bridge from your mess to God's rest. In those times where you're resting, you are letting go of your normal pattern of thought and behavior. You're interrupting the pattern. So it's a letting go by default. I'm taking this time out, I'm resting, and I'm letting go of my normal way of thinking. And that rests the mind. And that clears the mind. And now you have some space and some awareness for something else to come in. If you return to your tasks after that, then you're just in a clearer space. Your mind's not all enturbulated, and you're just in a clearer space because you've let go of your normal pattern. So it's like letting go all the time, which is kind of what Paul said when he said pray without ceasing. What does that actually mean? I don't think most Christians really understand it. It means that you are letting go, and you're finding this underlying peace continuously. Your mind is clear. You're clearing your mind of all the mental garbage that preoccupies so many people. Even while you operate, pray without ceasing. Okay, so now I'm in I'm in a flow state and I'm operating, I'm doing stuff, but my mind is still quite quiet. I'm focused, like it's very focused operation. So I'm focused on one thing at a time. I'm doing this, so I'm doing this. And I'm in that, there's a deeper peace, and now that comes into your action as flow. And that's what to pray without ceasing really means. It doesn't mean you're in prayer going, please God, help me or save me, and it doesn't mean you're always going, okay, well, I'm just going to blank my mind always. No, those are the extremes. It's being able to operate from that underlying state of rest. So you're at peace. Your hormone, your stress levels are good. There's an underlying peace and calm. Your mind is able to focus on one thing at a time, so you don't get all scattered and confused. And you take that rest into your action. And then after a time, you need to rest again. You need to go, okay, so I flowed for a few hours and that was good. And then you feel yourself kind of coming out of that. And after a few hours, usually you need a rest, don't you? It's like your mind starts to get a bit turbulated, you get a bit fatigued. That's the time. Instead of pushing through, you go, okay, so now take some time out. So do another breath break, do a meditation to, restore, replenish. And then you come back to your work and you feel refreshed. It's like a face wash for the mind. So those periods of longer meditation interspersed with the shorter breath breaks are how you integrate rest into your life as a daily practice. It's not something you go away and do, once you've burnt out, and no, you just integrate it, and then it's your life's sustainable. And that's really the idea of this program, is it will help you to build this in. If you're doing it, it helps you to build in this rest as just a default part of your life, which is how it should be, really. It shouldn't be like, well, I have to take a two-week holiday to get a rest. I mean, that's useful to do that, once or twice a year is useful, because it's just a deeper period of rest. But on an ongoing basis, let me integrate this into my life. So I've got these practices like meditation and maybe exercise as well, going for a walk, these and I integrate this into my life so that I'm taking the time out, and then I'm sustainable. Then I can go for these periods of flow. I can really be in flow, and I can pulse my energy, and I can perform really well for that time. But it's not always on. I have to acknowledge that I can't sustain that for 16 hours a day. I have to take time out and rest. I work pretty hard. It's maybe 12 hours a day, but then I've got the periods of rest going on in between, which makes it's sustainable. It's like, okay, I need to rest. Okay, so meditation. And I'll go and do a half an hour meditation, and it's like, it's like a face wash for the mind. I feel clear and clean, and then I can walk, I can carry on, I can work most of the night, and I'm not really tired until like the last hour or two, and then it's like, okay, now it's time to wrap up and go to bed. And then that's just been my pattern lately, because I haven't been able to do the necessary work to get all the stuff out by the morning, so I do it in at night, which is when I don't get disturbed as well. So but it's finding a routine for you that works. It's like, okay, does this work for you? Is it sustainable? Can you ask yourself, can you sustain this for the next 5 years? And if not, then you have to go, no, actually, I've got a problem here. This isn't a sustainable process. And then I'll burn out. At some point, I'll come to a point where I've drawn too much of my energy, and it's like crash and burn, and that's burnout, and that is not very efficient. It's not a very efficient way to do it. Some people have to, that's their part, like this woman but actually you don't have to. You can just build in rest into your daily life, and you don't have to burn out. Because you're just continuously resting. I think that's really the secret. I've done meditation for 20 odd years more, and it's just like I've just done it regularly, and breath work, and it's just integrated into my life. So I don't go away for long periods and have long holidays and so on. It's just this is the way I've worked out that I can sustain quite a high level of performance. You just build it into your daily schedule. If you don't do that, I had times when I was in the UK when I wasn't able to meditate. I just had a child, and I really struggled. I must say, I found it really, really difficult to stay in that underlying peace. Very, very, very hard to stay there consistently if you're not meditating consistently. I found it really hard because your mind gets into a track, and then it's very hard, like over a period of time, if you're not meditating regularly, to now get it out. You can't just that easily switch. It's like your mind starts getting entrained into another pattern, which is more of a beta state, more mind activity, and you find it harder to get into that deeper state of meditation, which is an alpha state. Whereas if you're doing it regularly every day, it's just like, okay, you've got that pathway is there, and you can just go there. Your mind is really used to that, and it welcomes it. Time to rest, great, and it just goes in. And so I found, there's been times when I've meditated really regularly. It's like it's very easy. You just drop into that state. It's like off you go, and you can just sit down, and within a few minutes you enter a really deep state, and then you come back and you're refreshed. If you're not doing that, it becomes quite hard. And I noticed, even though I was still meditating, I wasn't doing it as much. I noticed that it became harder to just sit in quiet, like, okay, I'm just going to quiet my mind, because your mind's now starting to get used to a pattern of being more active and more busier. And so it's harder to get into that state, which is why a lot of people struggle coming into meditation. So it's like they've got a whole pattern going on there of thought, and then it's like, oh, now suddenly you're just going to rest, and you're going to quiet your mind, and your mind's all over the shop, and they find it quite hard to kind of break through initially into some kind of peace and rest. But if they persevere, you start establishing that pattern. It's like you've trained your mind to go there, and within a few minutes, just by sitting, breathing, watching, these are just mantras that help you go into that state. So it's really worth doing, like regularly, daily, so that you get into that pattern. And it's like, yeah, I'm in the habit, I'm in the pattern, and I can just go there anytime I want. Okay, it's time to rest, so I go there, and I have my whatever it is, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, even a short breath break is going to be helpful. And then I come back, and okay, now I can go again. And it's just like investing. You're really investing in your productive capacity. So it is, even if you're still going, well, it's all about performance. Actually, if I want to perform at my peak, this is the way I'm going to do it. Any other way, it's not going to be sustainable. Ultimately you realize it's not really about performance either. This takes you into, it was interesting, the title of the talk was Redefining Race, slowing down to speed up. I was like, interesting. She's got to put in the speed up. It's not really, ultimately, it's not actually about speeding up. But that's maybe a lifetime journey to realize actually the whole point was not to speed up and get more done. The whole point is to find yourself and actually rest in that. So that's like another level of, obviously still got to, and maybe the title of the talk was, because they want to attract people to watch it, slowing down to speed up. So, okay, well, no, actually maybe just slow down to slow down. And you stay there.
So just one moment, this cat is on the chair and wants to scratch again. One moment. Come on,
Okay.
Benji. No scratchies. No scratchies. Stop it now. No scratchies. Relax. You might come and sit with you for a bit. Anyway, I think it's getting like close. And I don't even want to mention the word, but it's that time of day which will only be at 6 o'clock, but he starts at like 3:30. It's a bit early. Okay, now he's going out. I think he just wants a bit of attention again.
He wants his feed.
He starts at like 3:30, like meow, meow, meow. And I feed him at 6.
Okay.
Last night I only got back at 7:30, but I wasn't around if he was asking for food. It's gone to the gate now. Okay.
He probably wasn't
sorry.
asking if you only ask when you're there. So
well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's asked. I don't know. I don't see when I'm not here to know if he's asking.
yeah. No, I'm sure he's not asking. He's probably just resting. It's like he's only asking because you're there. He thinks he can get his food sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just
Yeah.
Any questions on this or any comments?
No, I mean, I agree. It's interweaving it into life, and like, you know, what she was saying is, you know, finding even those small moments, because otherwise, firstly, it's maybe a bit unrealistic to go, okay, yeah, I need another 2-week holiday. Although it might work out, but it doesn't always. But you need to bring it into your daily life, or as close to.
Realistically, in today's day and age, most people get 1, 2, or 3 week holiday a year. That's it. You know, in times gone past, people had longer holidays. They had like 6 weeks off, but those days are gone. It's like 1, 2, 3 week holiday, and maybe if you're lucky, you can get away for some long weekends. So you take little breaks, 2, 3 days, 3, 4 days at a time, which is also not a bad idea. You know, so like okay, one long holiday, and then those little breaks are just a time out. And then don't go and like party and like diminish your energy. Do something that's going to rejuvenate your energy. In that time, because that's now a little time out and a little break, so that then you come back into life and you're rejuvenated and restored and refreshed from that. You're not like, oh, a long weekend now I've got to recover from my week at work because I partied and I drank too much. This is what a lot of people do, and then they're just drawing on their energy the whole time. If you keep drawing your energy and you're not replenishing it, you're going to get sick at some point, because your body mind is an energy system. If you keep drawing out of it and not replenishing it, well, at some point it's just going to go, okay, your life energy drops so low that you're going to get sick. And that's why we get sick. It's not really about it's not about the virus or the bacteria or that's apparently the cause, but the real cause is your energy levels are low. You didn't know how to manage your energy. If your energy is good and it's at a high level, you won't get sick, because your system is operating at a good level. And any of those apparent problems, your immune system deals with effectively, because you're in a high energy state. It's when you get low energy, and then so then you start wondering. I mean, this whole COVID thing, like, is there actually such a thing as a virus, or do people just get into a stressed, low energy state, and then because they're in that low energy state, their body's in a state where it needs to shut down temporarily. All these symptoms come as a result of an overload of stress chemicals, of toxicity in the body, and then they need to go, okay, man down. You're going to go down for a week to recover your energy. You've got to rest. It's like enforced rest. And there's a lot of evidence to support that theory, that actually colds and flu and any kind of disease it's the body saying, time out. I need rest here. And so the only way you're going to rest and restore your energy is if it gets so serious, you get these symptoms that put you down and you have to rest. There's no option here. So I think COVID is a symptom of a sick society. I think people are getting sick because of all the stress. Stress is the real killer of all the stress.
I mean,
and it's not a sustainable society. It's not a sustainable lifestyle that we've created. And no one, well, certainly not the general medical industry, are saying you need to do this kind of stuff. You need to do mindfulness. You need to meditate. You need to build this into your life, and look at things like exercise and diet.
I'm listening. Come on. I think you just need He's at the gate. Go out, and he's not allowed to go out.
Hello. You're on
this is Benji.
Benji. Hello, Benji. Oh, very sweet.
No, he is a very sweet kid. Shame. I know you're dying to go out. I wish I could let you out, but
Are you
I don't want you to get into a fight.
Oh, okay. You get into cat fights.
Well,
So I
don't
think
know.
COVID is really a symptom of a sick society. And vaccinations and so on. This isn't the answer. The answer is actually to help people to just start living more mindfully, to live in a way that's sustainable, create a sustainable society where it's not like work until you burn out. That's horribly ineffective. And companies in the corporate world, they should be like, okay, we're going to build this in. Yeah, take time out. I think, now with flexi working, people working from home, it's a great opportunity to do that. So, okay, I'm going to build this into my life because my company doesn't know I'm meditating at 2:00 in the afternoon, but I'm going to do it because if I do a half an hour, it makes me more effective for the rest of the afternoon. And they should actually make it mandatory in workplaces. Say, look, research shows that after lunch, productivity drops massively. It just happens. People get tired if they've had especially if they eat incorrectly, their blood sugar levels drop. And then, it's like sitting at my computer and I'm falling asleep. That's probably what happened in the afternoon. So take a time out, in Google, they have these meditation pods. Go and by all means, go and take a time out. Have a half an hour. We've created the environment for you. That's quite okay. Obviously not the whole afternoon, but take half an hour, put on some headphones and just because you're going to come back and you're going to feel refreshed. You're going to feel energized. You're going to be much more effective at your work. And you might get some creative ideas as well. You might just make better decisions. And, if you understand that, why wouldn't you make it like mandatory? Like, I think, at these companies, it should be like, okay, yeah, we do a meditation in the morning to start and you're encouraged to join that. And we do a meditation sort of mid-afternoon. And if we don't do it as a group, we do it, we've got these meditation rooms or pods or whatever, and we encourage you to go do it rather than, oh, no, he's slacking off work.
Yeah.
Because there's still that kind of very, very Western, so the WASP work ethic, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant working. You got to work, it's like 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not sensible. That's not the most efficient way of working. Research has shown that. If you take these little timeouts, you're going to be a lot more effective.
Yeah, I find there is a recognition of it, but then it's like, it's the same, it's that kind of, like you say, taking time out, or, we need, I know in our workplace, especially with those who are like, those who are doing professional, that high skilled work as services to clients or development in that. Like there's this recognition of what is needed, but it's that kind of, okay, so we know that you need training, we're going to offer training, and they set everything up. But then how do you take the time out when you're like pulled into this and pulled into that because this is an urgent, critical situation? So I think that's where they have to find the balance and be a little bit more, okay, you know what, that can wait. There's some things can just wait.
Exactly.
Because it's just this constant prep. So like they'll bring in oh, we've made this tool available for you. Okay, yes, you should take your leave. But actually we have a small team of 5 people or 4 or 3. So one of you out of 4 people, it's 25% out of the office. And you've got to support these clients that we have these contracts for. So it's like still getting to that recognition of, and then, I won't get into it all here, but it's just that it's that kind of, they make this thing available. There's that recognition, but then follow through in terms of, because at the end of the day, it still comes back to that, but we need to make this quarter.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's integrity.
That's the thing. So it's like,
it's an integrity in terms of how you operate as a business. It's like not lip service to this. Oh, yes, we'll make it available because I know that's good. Research says that. It actually comes down to, okay, we need to walk the talk here. If we're going to do this, we need to reprioritize. We need to say our people are our biggest priority, not our customers, right? Our people. That should be the priority for companies. Because if all of your people are stressed and burnt out, how do you serve your customers? So really supporting our people to be sustainable, to be able to do this, but do it sustainably. That should be our priority. And you have to bring in principles of mindfulness. There's no way, there's no other way. And that means, yes. So maybe our turnaround time, like if a client's got a complaint, is not going to be 24 hours. Maybe it's going to be 48 hours. Maybe. Because that's what's sustainable. That's what we can do with our quota, our allocation. Or maybe we need to hire someone else so that we can reduce the workload. So yes, that's going to cost us more money, but overall that's sustainable. Because if we burn, if we're trying to get 3 people to do the job of 5 because we're saving costs, that's not walking our talk. We're putting pressure on these people to do more work, and we go, no, we really value you. No, but you must do the work of 1.5 people. See, it's got to be an integrous system. You can't say on the one hand, yes, we absolutely value you, because they'll all say that, won't they? They will say, no, we really want to get the most out of you and work you to the bone, burn you out, and then we'll just replace you. They can't say that. But then they act in ways that are like that. That are actually saying, well, that's actually what we're trying to do. You're some kind of disposable asset, a human resource. Well, that's a terrible word. You're a human resource. God.
I know.
Change the language, for God's sakes. Human resources. They're not a resource.
Resource manager.
Yeah, human resource. And that's the terminology. Okay, you got to manage our resources. Like, how much can we get out of you? That's like you're a factor of production. So it's still that kind of. I studied economics and stuff. They had labor as a resource, and it's a very clinical mindset to see people as a resource.
I know.
Rather than, okay, these are people who have feelings, they have families, they have lives, they have emotions, they have their own problems and difficulties. They're not a resource. They are people. They are souls. Surely we should be trying to really nurture them and make their work an integral part of a meaningful life for them. And that this needs to fit into the whole picture, because then it becomes sustainable. Then we get their loyalty. Then we have not just employees, we have partners. We have people who really buy into our mission and our vision, and they will go the extra mile for us because we went the extra mile for them, because they really feel valued. And too many companies, unfortunately, it's the financial mindset.
The bottom line. Always comes down to the bottom line.
So, that's why I've developed a system for values-based management, because I'm the only way you're going to do this is if you change the measurement system. You can't keep measuring on financials and then have a shift in behavior, because that's then still the bottom line. So it comes back to that. Oh, well, we haven't met our quarterly targets, so drive the workers harder. Next month, next quarter, we want better performance. That's the message that comes down from the top, and then it's right. We've got to mash the slaves a little bit more, but we don't want to tell them that. So we've got to find it. So it's manipulation. It's not being integrous, and people can see through all of that. People are not stupid. They see. Is this real? Did the company really care about me, or is it just they're giving me another spiel so they can get more? They can get more out of me. And then it's people turn around and say, I have to actually try and protect myself because I don't feel like the company really values me and trusts me. So I have to do things that are going to protect me. And so now it becomes about me versus management. The game. Because they're not really going, okay, how can we really help you? How can we really support you? And you are our priority. You, as our our employees, workers, our partners, you are our priority, because you're what's going to make the company great. You generate the results. You do the customer service. And the best companies do that. They go, no, our employees, our team is our priority, not our customers. We make sure our team is good, because then they then deliver the customer service. And it's certainly not this whole idea financial performance. You know, that somehow the company exists for the shareholders. I mean, that is a crazy idea. That only really came in the 70s. There's a guy called Milton Friedman who came up with this idea of shareholder value. And then it kind of got it somehow widely adopted. Oh no, shareholder value. We're running the business only for the shareholders. What? What a load of nonsense. What about the employees? What about the customers? What about the suppliers? You know, there's a whole ecosystem here. It's not just shareholders get everything.
To people that, yeah.
So it's like an extraction model. You know, the modern model is like, how much can the shareholders get out of everyone else? Because ultimately,
they can buy a house in Martha's Vineyard and have their tax haven in Panama and their boat in the Caribbean.
Yes, so they have a fantastic lifestyle, and everyone else is working like dogs to pay for it. I mean, that's just modern slavery. That's not a sustainable ecosystem. It's like, no, you know, that doesn't work sustainably. But that's been the mindset over the last 30, 40 years, since this, you know, shareholder value idea came out. Before that, I think businesses were more holistic. They were like, okay, it's about the employees as well. It's about shareholders. Yes, they need to be looked after. They put money in, fair enough. But they're not the only party. They're one of many. You've got your employees, you've got your customers, you've got your shareholders, you've got your suppliers. You know, it all needs to work. To be a sustainable ecosystem, it needs to work. And primarily, like, where does the value in the business get generated? It comes from your employees. That's where it comes from, because they're the ones who operate in the business. So actually, you should be really investing in them, saying like, if we make our team really good, really strong, we make this sustainable, then the rest will happen. Then our shareholders will get served, our suppliers, our customers, because our employees are the heart of they're the engine room of the whole business. So, okay, well, let's nurture them. Let's make sure that our employees are good and that they really enjoy working here. They enjoy their work. They find it meaningful. They find some purpose. It integrates with their life. They don't get burnt out, because if they burn out, that's not good. We don't want them to burn out. We want them to be, you know, sustainably performing for the business for the next 10 years at least. So, but then maybe we need to change it's a mindset. We need to change our mindset. It's not about the next quarter and the next quarter's results. It's about the next 10 years. So yeah, maybe in next quarter we don't hit our targets. Well, who sets these targets? And like, who? You know, it's the infinite versus the finite game. If you listen to Simon Sinek,
yes, yeah,
it's brilliant. Infinite versus the finite game. Business is an infinite game. It doesn't stop in the next quarter. It's not like, right, our next quarter, because then you go to the next quarter and the next quarter. So like now you're in this quarteritis syndrome of like, oh, we've got to get the quarter, that's what it's called, quarteritis.
Yeah, someone else told me that as well.
It's a disease because it's short term and it's all goal setting or we need to hit that. But now if you're thinking only for the next quarter, you're not thinking 5-10 years. You're not thinking sustainability. You're just thinking, right, we've got to get our quarterly results up. Okay, so screw the employees as much as you can so that you can get the quarterly results. You might do it for a quarter or two, and then you know what? Suddenly your results are going to drop because these employees are going to go, stuff you. Like, we're going to leave. It's not sustainable because you can't. So it's a very, very short-term, ridiculous mindset that has taken hold of companies, and it's like, it's crazy. This doesn't work. This isn't sustainable. It's not nurturing a productive, a truly sustainable, productive society at all. In fact, it's destructive, because if so many people are stressed out of their minds, well, you know what? Guess what happens? You get a pandemic like COVID. That's what happens. And then you go, oh, well, it's a virus. No, it's not a virus. It's symptomatic of a diseased society. That's what this is. And then it's like, okay, well, then everything stops. People are getting sick left, right, and center. Everything stops. Well, that wasn't very productive, was it?
Well, not everything. The poor, smaller businesses got stopped. Okay, I'm talking and the bigger ones got to operate still. How convenient.
Oh, well, exactly. So now it becomes, an economic and political tool as well, because ultimately, what this is a power game. Nothing's really changed. It's like who's got the power, who's got the resources, who's got the money. And the world's always operated that way. And obviously, if you've got lots of small businesses, that's not good for big corporates because it's competition. So we use it to okay, well, no, we're going to actually consolidate our power, and ultimately it devolves to monopoly power. You get a corporatocracy, which ends up being effectively corporates run the world. We know that because they have the huge influence on politicians and so on. And small guys get shut out. You have to fit into the system, or what do you do? So it comes back to these. All of this is interwound. I mean, we talked about Star Wars to start with. There's a theme of freedom there. It's all bound up. Like if you can give people the freedom to rest, to connect with their spirit, to make it sustainable, you can start to create a system that's sustainable for everyone. And that means that there's freedom of choice, that people have free will. It's not just like you have to do this and there's only one way. So it's all bound up. If you start introducing these kinds of principles, the whole system changes, which is maybe why there's such resistance, because there's a control system in place that knows that if you start introducing these kinds of mindfulness practice, it's a thin edge of the wedge. It changes things. Culture changes, values change, businesses change, society changes. So going back to the Star Wars theme, it's like the dark and the light. They're these forces playing off against each other, and they're at odds. They don't agree. The idea of mindfulness and rest and making things sustainable and really, helping people to be happily productive, and in flow.
Just one moment. What are you doing? Okay. All right. Sorry. Carry on.
That creates a different world. If companies did that, everyone did it, it would create a very, very different world, different value system. But there's this entrenched mindset of like, no, we've got to keep doing this because that's the way, that's the right way. But it's not the right way. It's destroying the planet. It's killing people. It's madness what we're doing collectively. If you look at it, if you zoom out from a species point of view, you're heading to self-destruction here, guys. It's obvious. You can't keep doing this and have a sustainable planet. But yet we continue. So what? So are we hell bent on our own destruction? Well, it seems like it. But then that's the ego's thought system. The ego only leads to death. That's what it does. It's a death wish. So you can't expect it to do anything that's actually life enhancing and sustainable, because it's a death wish. If you listen to it, then that's where you're going, individually and collectively as a species. You're going towards death, which is where we're heading. And obviously there's the interplay. Fortunately, more and more people are starting to question and say, look, this is crazy. This really doesn't make any sense. We need to start doing this kind of thing. Mindfulness, we need to start integrating these principles into society, into the very guts of our society. Otherwise, we're heading one way. We're going the way of the dinosaurs. We're not going to last. I mean, the dinosaurs lasted 250 million years. There's absolutely no way on our current track we're going to last a fraction of that time. No way. We'll destroy ourselves.
250 million years.
Yes. The dinosaurs ruled the earth for 250 million years. From about 350 million years ago to about 60 odd million. They said about 66 million somewhere. And what took them out was totally beyond their control. It was a comet. Okay, well, they probably still would have been ruling the earth if it hadn't been for that event, because it took that to take them out. They they operated sustainably. They lived in harmony with nature, and it was sustainable.
Mm.
Then we come along, we're like, no, we got all these other ideas. Let's take as much as we possibly can from the natural environment. Everything and everyone else must serve this one species. It's not sustainable. It's an insane mindset. And at some point, if we continue, we'll wipe ourselves out. The planet will just regenerate, and another species will become dominant, and there'll be nothing left. In a million years, I mean, if suddenly everyone died tomorrow, in a million years, you wouldn't even know we'd existed on this planet. It would all just be covered over. Nature would take its course. All the cities, it would all. If you'd have to do archaeological excavation to find it. It would all just disappear because it's an infinite game. It's like it'll continue. And until we start playing an infinite game, unfortunately, we're on the track towards death and destruction, because that's a finite game by definition. It's finite. It has an end. That's the ego. It's like, okay, there's an end point here. You have to start thinking in different ways. So I think we're really at a critical juncture in humanity's whole saga. It's like, okay, which way are we going to go here? Are we actually going to learn some of these principles and actually apply them and walk the talk and create a society that's sustainable? Or are we going to just continue doing the same insane stuff over and over again until it wipes us out or greatly reduces? Maybe the population's got to get greatly reduced, and maybe we learn a lesson, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe from a small population, we that becomes more sustainable. I don't know. There's no reason why we couldn't make what we have sustainable. They're like 7-8 billion people are sustainable if they're living in the right way. If you had a sustainable society, you could, but it's not designed that way. So I think we're in for some phase adjustment, big time, in the next 10 years, one way or another. We'll see which way it goes. But all you can do is say, well, let me be the change that I want to see in the world. So, I'm going to live these principles, and I'm going to do this as best I can, and be a force for the the right way of thinking and constructive change. As she says, it takes courage and a profound mind shift to value rest in a way that practically integrates it into your daily life. You actually have to have the courage to rest. It's insane. So no, I'm gonna take the time out and I'm gonna meditate. Oh, you're sitting doing nothing. No, I'm not sitting doing nothing. I'm resting and I'm restoring and I'm replenishing my energy so that I can do this sustainably. And if people don't understand that, then they are the ones who need a mind shift. Because just going and doing is not sustainable. And you're not going to be happy either. What's the point of all of that? If you're not connecting with the deeper self and going into that deeper state of mind, and you're continuously busy in the egoic mind, there's no happiness there. It's just stressing, straining, and striving. For what? To eventually burn yourself out and get sick and die. Oh, well, that was good. That was a good way of living your life then. So yeah, it's a deep topic. I mean, this stuff really needs to get out to corporates to start really understanding and saying, yeah, look, this is the only way we're going to make our business sustainable and a sustainable system. Otherwise, we're all going to, look at COVID is a sign of a breakdown in society. Well, stuff breaks down, we all suffer.
Yeah.
Okay, so any more comments or questions on that?
But it's not really like, I think it's like you say, it's offered there, and maybe people just don't follow it. Maybe even not because it's just again, it's like getting that mindset to just do it and fit it in and make it part of it.
Yeah, and it's a complete readjustment. Instead of being short-term focused and focused on the next quarter or the next year,
it's that part.
You've got to play an infinite game.
I mean, this is part really.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is just part of it, really, from that point of view. It's actually just going, okay, well, you know what's really important.
But it's a chicken and egg, you see. If you start doing mindfulness practices, then you start realizing what's really important.
Yeah.
How else do you shift people's mindset out of that busy, it's the next quarter. The only way is if they start getting quiet and they sit still. I mean, there's a guy called
when something happens, like an Adriana, or what's it? Adriana or Ariana Huffington, who like had that experience now makes that realization. Then they'll be like, you know.
Yeah. So you need business leaders to start having these realizations of like what's really important. It's their own personal journey of like some kind of transformation happening, and then they go, "Oh wow, actually, I really I see this," and I actually, from my heart of hearts, I want to put this out to all my people because I want them to share in the same realization that I've had, and be happy. I don't want to create unhappiness and misery and pain and suffering. That I don't want that to be my legacy. So these kinds of practices are key. If you can get people to start doing it, saying, okay, yes, and usually it happens because they're suffering personally. Unfortunately, suffering then leads to a willingness to be open. If Mr. $1 million corporate salary thinks everything's okay, then he doesn't change. It's only when it's like, I've hit a wall. I've hit some kind of personal crisis. I've got burnt out. I've got sick. Whatever, that then they kind of go, okay, maybe I need to look at this stuff. Instead of a nice to do, maybe this needs to be an essential to do. I need to really start paying attention to this and investing time in it. Because if I don't invest time in this, ultimately, I'm going to be investing time in trying to fix up my health, fix up my life, fix up my business, and that's not very efficient. So people think, short term, I'm getting ahead. I'm like, but you're just burning yourself out. It's not an intelligent way of working. So I'd like to get this into corporates. Start getting to people who lead these corporates and saying, here, there's a program and you can do this. You start doing it, and then get your employees to do it. But you need to do it. I tried actually in there was a group of companies called the KISO in the medical industry, and it was like to get their staff involved in this. But I don't think there was buying, like the top management didn't do it. They weren't into it. So then like they don't really understand. They're like, yeah, good idea. But if you're not into it yourself, like you're not really going to see the need for it, are you? So it starts with individual transformation. So if you can get key executives to start doing this, and they go, wow, actually this is really helpful. It's really helping me. And it's working for me, and it's changed my life, then you've got a chance, because now they've got a personal buy-in to it. So it's a whole anyway, we can only do what we can do. If you can make a change one person at a time, and that's what it's about. Do your bit to help people to start down this track. Okay, so should we have a little look at the lesson?
Yes, Benji.
Okay, so do you want to read paragraph 1 for us?
I rest in God. I rest in God today, and let him work in me and through me while I rest in him in quiet and in perfect certainty.
It's got a nice feeling, that.
It's kind of another way of surrendering.
Yeah.
You can take over.
I rest in him. So for a lot of say business executives, this will be too woo-woo. It's like, what I rest in? But actually, I rest in my deeper self. I rest in a loving presence that's calm and peaceful and quiet. It makes more sense. And that's really all it is. I rest in that presence, and in quiet and perfect certainty, from that state of mind, I now function in the world. So sometimes it's just changing the language. Yes, I can. He's wanting his food.
I think he also wants to go out because he keeps going to the gate.
All right.
I think he's frustrated.
Okay. Do you need to do anything, or can you just ignore it?
No, so much. I'm just watching that he doesn't do something strange. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I rest in God. It's just got a really nice feeling. I rest in God. You remind yourself of that. It's like, okay, I'm just dropping into that quiet state in my mind. I rest in God. It's the eternal, it's the infinite game. I rest in that. It's this infinite eternal consciousness in my mind. That's what I rest in. So it takes you out of the temporary, the ephemeral, which is all egoic, all about time and deadlines, and just I rest in God. God is infinite. I'm playing the infinite game if I rest in God. And then the second one is I am as God created me, which kind of follows on. So if I rest in God, then I start to recognize that I am as God created me. Now, if you rest and you're just quiet and you're still, then you must come into the awareness of that presence in you. And you start to realize I am as God created me. Like that presence is still there and still in me, but you only come to it with rest. If your mind is working at 100 miles an hour and you're so busy, you don't know who you are. I mean, as that lady said in the TED Talk, she said it was a profound spiritual awakening. I had to rest, and I had to come to an awareness of who I really was, my deeper self. So the two go hand in hand. Rest leads you to the awareness of who you really are. I am God's son. Now, another way of saying that is, I am the extension of this loving presence. Right? I am this loving presence. This loving presence is in me. God's son, again, can put people off, but it's just referring to you're the extension of that presence. That presence that created you is in you. Today I lay aside all sick illusions of myself and let my Father tell me who I really am. Let my source tell me, and that's not a voice going, you are this. It's just it's a feeling. Yeah, I'm feeling peaceful. I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling okay within myself. And I must lay aside all sick illusions of myself. So all of this, you start to see the behavior, the not wanting to rest and the busyness. It's all part of the false self. It's a sick illusion of yourself. That's a human doing. It's about what you do. Your value and your esteem, your self-esteem comes from what you do, not from who you are. That's the illusion that needs to be challenged and undone. So you start to see how it's all bound up with this self-concept. Who do you think you are? That's what it all comes down to. If you think you're human, if you think your value is determined by what you achieve, you're gonna be caught up in that crazy, insane cycle of doing, and never finding your beingness. because that's what the ego wants you to do. It wants you to just be caught up in being a human doing and not understanding who you really are. So the whole thing comes down, I mean, when you really understand it, it comes down to your self-concept. You know, which self-concept do you believe? And everything follows from that self-concept. The world we've created is a projection of a false self-concept. The only way of correcting it is to go back to our true self-concept, which is as God created us, as this lesson says. And listen to that and you know, live an integrous life, live in integrity to that. Yeah, that's who I really am. If I really am infinite, eternal, loving presence, then I need to live that way. And not allow the ego's thought system to keep tempting you to go down the garden path. Okay, so any questions on that?
Yeah, so it's getting to that inner feeling, inner whatever it is you describe it.
Well, every time you choose to rest, you're inviting that to happen. So this is why the practice is so important, because if you're not resting and you're not taking time out, then how do you connect? Mostly you don't. You just stay in the busyness of your ego mind.
Mm.
So the practice of resting leads to the self-realization. So you go hand in hand, which is great, because it means you can do something about it.
Mm.
It's not like, oh well, I'm just going to wait for self-realization to happen. No, I can consciously choose to do these practices and integrate them into my life, and know that as I'm resting and I'm restoring my energy and doing things that are going to help me to be functional and productive in this world, I'm also going towards, you know, self-realization, enlightenment. The two are one. You know, they're not separate. Being more functional and productive in the world and realizing who you are one thing. Because the one leads to the other.
Mm.
Just one moment. I'm just going to turn off my fridge. It's whining for some reason. Okay. So any questions or comments about the lessons?
Well, no more than what I was mentioning already.
Hmm.
Again, it's just getting to that.
Yeah, well, that's why it's a practice. You know, remember, it's a process. So that's the infinite game. It's a process, and every day you do it. Every day you choose to get up, and you're doing the program that you're on, and you're doing these lessons as often as you can. You're in the process of it. You're inviting God's presence to come more and more into your mind, and it will do. If over time, if you stick to this. If I think about my journey, I mean, 15 years ago, really, I was clueless. I didn't really know. But it was a start. It was like I was curious enough to go, okay, I want to read this book, and I want to try and understand it. And it was really, what can I get out of it? Oh, I want to learn to manifest and, you know, be a super manifester. That was the idea. Like, oh, it'd be cool to do what Jesus did. You know, it was immature, but like at the same time, it was a start, you know, and so it got me started. And then I just persisted. I was like, okay, if I stick with this, you know, I just had a feeling that there's something here. There's something amazing. I need to persevere with it. And then you just deepen in your understanding and your knowledge, because that's what's required. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So it's the rest of your life. So every time you practice these, you know, it's a daily practice. You go deeper. You're connecting with the spirit. You go deeper. Your understanding develops, and like just little by little. I couldn't say I had one moment where I had a major transformation. It was just baby steps. It was like, yeah, you have these little like insights. Maybe it's like, wow, like I get that. You know, you do have those, but it wasn't like, okay, now like an Eckhart Tolle, suddenly it's like everything's going to collapse. My ego's going to drop away. I'm going to wake up the next morning and it's like, hallelujah, you know, I see the light. And for most people, it's not going to be that single epiphany. It's going to be a, you know, slow progression. Like just every day, using every day for what it's for. Every day is for miracles. And that miracle might just be a little shift in your perception. That's all. That was the miracle. You know, nothing overtly happens. Just, oh, okay, I kind of have a little bit of more insight, a little bit more understanding. Maybe in a situation where I was tempted to get upset, I didn't get upset. I chose to let it go instead. You know, these little decisions then take you down a path which ultimately lead to your happiness or great unhappiness. You know, as we saw with Anakin, made these little decisions, decision by decision by decision, eventually leads him into the darkness. But at each point, he had a choice to choose something else. He could have made a different decision.
Yeah, it was a series of decisions in a way, wasn't it?
And that's how it works. You know, the part we have, our choices, our decisions have huge power. And those are little moment by moment decisions. Okay, so something's happened. Am I going to get triggered and get upset and get angry? Or am I going to pause, breathe, release it, let it go, you know, do my true prayer, which is to forgive, and find another way. And that's a seemingly little decision, but it's a profound decision. Because you know you've chosen the right way in that situation. And if you keep doing that, if you keep choosing the right way, it's going to take you in a very different direction from the wrong way. If you keep getting angry and upset and negative, then you know that's a whole other path that takes you down. Just moment by moment, decision by decision. And so these exercises are to help you to make the right decision. That's all. You're saying moment by moment, just life is a series of choices. Then these exercises, day by day, will help you to make the right choice consistently. Which is why he's giving them to us as a daily practice and half-hourly practice in this case. Saying, well, you need some reprogramming. If you keep doing this, if you do this every half an hour, chances are you're probably going to make the right decision if you get a challenge, aren't you? Because this is in the forefront of your mind. I rest in God. Okay. So how do I approach the situation? Well, I do it through a peaceful, restful state, rather than getting all angry and turbulent. Okay, so should we have a look at the text reading?
Is it a long one today?
No, you'll be pleased to know it's only 6 paragraphs. So.
Okay.
If it was 20, we might just,
Because the last couple I haven't actually read the last ones in a couple of weeks. I'll play David's reading of it.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to read paragraph 1?
Okay. Sorry, I just need to.
This is entitled "The End of Doubt."
Okay.
So you know.
That one is in time, but not for time. Being in you, it is eternal. What holds remembrance of God cannot be bound by time. No more are you. Stop it. Sorry. For unless God is bound, you cannot be. An instant offered to the Holy Spirit is offered to God on your behalf. And in that instant, you will awaken gently in Him. In the blessed instant, you will let go all your past learning, and the Holy Spirit will quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace. What can take time when all the obstacles to learning it have been removed? Truth is so beyond time that all of it happens at once. for as it was created one, so its oneness depends not on time at all.
Okay. So anything stand out for you there?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like in the blessed number 7, if in the blessed instant you will let go of all your past learning, and the Holy Spirit will quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace. What can take time when all the obstacles in learning it have been removed? I'm just thinking how practically this would have, like you just mentioned Eckhart Tolle, it's like this, that one is in time but not for time, being in you is eternal. That's, I think what it's describing to me is just like if everything just, the veil and everything just falls away. There's no time, it just happens.
Blessed instant, you will let go of all your past learning. Quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace. It's describing a moment of satori, it's called in the East, of enlightenment, where you just get it. The Holy Spirit will quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace. In the Course's terminology, I mean, if all time and space, all awareness of time and space drop away, it's a revelation. You go into a state of mind where there's no time, there's no space, there's just pure formless awareness and total peace. And he's saying, well, this will happen when all the obstacles to learning it have been removed. So it's always available, not something that actually needs to take time. The only time is required to undo all the blocks to the awareness of that state. That's why we need time. But if we were really willing to drop all of that away, then that state is there. It's there now. It always has been there. It's an available state. It's just been covered over by our own illusions.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually need to take. He's saying you could wake up now. Possible.
Yeah.
If you dropped all of your defenses and all of your past learning that's taught you the ego's thought system, you could wake up now. And occasionally that does happen. People do just wake up. Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, Ramana Maharshi. He was 16. He's doing his homework. He just gets it. And he gets it. And that's it. In an instant. So there was no like long, he probably had past lives where he'd done a lot of stuff, I'm imagining. But it's possible. So this is why he's saying, it's not, you got to be quite careful with this idea, because it can be very seductive. The ego can say, well, this is going to take time. It's going to be a long process. And actually it doesn't need to be a long process. How quickly are you willing to let go, really? That's the process. So, practically speaking, generally that doesn't happen overnight for people, but don't limit yourself. Actually it's all available right now. And I am that right now. The Course's whole methodology is not one day you'll be enlightened. It's like, no, you're enlightened now. I am the light of the world. Now, it's a present statement. As soon as you say, oh, well, this is going to take time. And I remember listening to Robert Perry in that one, the interview about COVID. He said, well, we have to acknowledge that we're just not there yet. It's like, but Robert, the whole point of the Course is to break through that barrier. If you keep acknowledging you're not there yet, then you're never going to be there. That's how it works. You have to start saying, I am there. He's the founder of the Circle of Atonement. So he's been doing this for a long time. Since the 80s. They founded an organization called the Circle of Atonement. He was the guy, I think you were in that session.
Oh, is that when you're playing that interview?
Yes. So you saw he was the older guy.
Okay.
He's like, well, we just, the end of it, well, we're not there yet. And it's like, but the whole point of the Course is he's saying you are there. That's the whole point. I am the light of the world, not sometime in the future, right now. If you keep saying we're not there yet, then guess what? You'll never get there, because that's what the ego will keep saying. And so that's how it uses time to prevent you from the present awakening to your true being. And that's kind of what he's saying in this paragraph, isn't it? What can take time when all the obstacles to learning it have been removed? So we only seem to need time because we've got all these obstacles, and we're actually stubborn. We don't want to let go of them. We're so stubborn. And he's got to try and break through our stubbornness of going, no, you're like, you don't really know. You think you know what you're doing. You think you can manage your life, but you don't know. Your entire thought system is wrong, and you just stubbornly continue in this, and that blocks the light. And the only reason it's taking time here is because you so stubbornly want to continue in your ego thinking. Okay, so any more comments or questions on that first paragraph?
No, no more for now.
Do not be concerned with time, and fear not the instant of holiness that will remove all fear. The instant of peace is eternal because it is without fear. It will come, being the lesson God gives you through the teacher he has appointed to translate time into eternity. Blessed is God's teacher, whose joy it is to teach God's holy Son his holiness. His joy is not contained in time. His teaching is for you, because his joy is yours. Through him, you stand before God's altar, where he gently translates hell into heaven. For it is only in heaven that God would have you be. Okay?
Who is the teacher in this case? Blessed is God's teacher whose joy is it Holy Spirit?
Yeah. Yeah, it's talking about the Holy Spirit. So it's the voice in your mind that remembers oneness. That's all. It remembers that eternal state, and that then becomes your teacher.
That's Holy Spirit. The voice is Holy Spirit. Okay.
It's the memory. It's the memory of God, this eternal oneness in time. And Jesus calls that the Holy Spirit or the teacher. But there's a part of our mind that knows oneness, that's still connected to that, and that can now interface in this world, can look at this world and what we perceive and interpret it from the perspective of oneness. That's the Holy Spirit's function.
And then it goes, his teaching is for you because his joy is yours. That's just the oneness again. And
yeah, in truth, there's no separation. There's no Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That Trinity is a learning device. It's there to help us in our seemingly separated state try and understand how we're going to get back. Perfect oneness. But there's perfect oneness. Now we have a memory of perfect oneness in our seemingly separated mind. We've gone into this whole idea of separation so completely that we've denied oneness. We've forgotten it. And now we need some kind of way back. So perfect oneness is the absolute truth, but that has to be interpreted in our current state. So now there's a memory of oneness, which allows us to reinterpret our perceptions in the seemingly separated state from the perspective of oneness, which then transforms those perceptions, and it brings our mind systematically back to a state where all we believe in, all we know is oneness. Which is it's quite simple actually, if you think of it in those terms. That there's just these aspects of the mind, and this whole teaching on Father, Son, Holy Spirit is the way back, because you need some kind of bridge from your totally separated state to perfect oneness. They seem to be so opposite. They are completely opposite. From this state of seemingly being human and caught up in time and space and in this world and all the dramas of this world, to perfect oneness is like a radical mind shift. So there's like a bridge, and that bridge, to come back to today's quote, is the prayer, and the true prayer is forgiveness. True prayer is, let me let go of my misperceptions of this. Let me let go of my thinking about whatever the world is and what I am and how I interact. Let me let all that go. That's the true prayer. To surrender or to forgive. And prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. The only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who've been forgiven have everything. Because forgiveness is the way you start listening to the Holy Spirit. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. So to then start saying, oh, well, please God or universe or whatever you want to pray to, please do this for me, becomes meaningless, because you've let go of all the meaning that you've given to this world if you've truly forgiven. So it's no longer like you're seeking something externally. It's you already have it. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. That's the true prayer.
So you don't need to pray for something to come, because it's already there.
You already have it. Prayer, in the conventional sense, just perpetuates the illusion that you don't have everything. What am I praying for if I have everything? Please, God, do this for me. Well, what you're saying is you're in a state of lack. Mm-hmm. And so it confirms that actually you somehow separated from being whole and complete and perfect. So it's just another form of desire, which, as the Buddha noted 2,500 years ago, is the source of all suffering. Prayer in the conventional sense, oh, please, God, do this for me. It's just another form of desire, expectation. It keeps you in time and space. The true prayer is, well, I just want to know myself. I want to forgive, let go of all of my misperceptions, come to an awareness of myself, where I recognize that I have everything. I don't need to pray for anything. I have everything already. It's in me now. It's not sometime in the future. I don't need anything to happen. I have it now. And that's the enlightened state.
Also, that sentence, Jono, number 7, paragraph 2, through him you stand before God's altar. Why would they put it as where he gently translates hell into heaven? Like, why would they put even a description like that?
Through him you stand before God's altar. So he uses this this altar imagery quite a lot. The altar is the it's a metaphor for the very inner part, the innermost part of your mind is God's altar. So that's your core awareness, your fundamental awareness that cannot be undone. So through the Holy Spirit, you stand before that place of pure form. We'll call God's altar pure formless awareness. The Holy Spirit, through reinterpreting your perceptions, brings you to that place of pure formless awareness in your mind. Not really a place, it's a state of mind, where he gently translates hell into heaven. So by correcting your perceptions, you come to that pure formless awareness, where this hellish world of separation is translated into heaven, which is pure formless awareness, perfect oneness. Where it's only in heaven that God would have you be. So he's just using metaphor and imagery to try and help us. And he's used this quite a bit in the last few years.
I've seen him use the altar, yeah.
You have seen him?
Altar, yeah.
Yeah, he's used that in the previous chapters. So he's just continuing with the image, God's altar is really pure formless awareness. That is God's altar in your mind. When you are in pure formless awareness, when the only awareness you have is pure formless awareness, then you are in God's altar. You are at the altar of God. You are worshiping God. You are giving worth only to that, you see. You're valuing only that. That's then becomes your entire awareness. And the hell of a seemingly separate self perceiving a separate world is over. There's only perfect oneness. Whereas only in heaven that God would have you be.
So when you stand before God's altar, it's like kind of you now at that point into oneness.
Well, you already have it's not about to enter. It's like you're in that awareness. You're through your forgiveness, you're coming to that state of oneness, at one-ment in your mind, and you'll experience the peace. And that might happen, just totally internally if you're in meditation, closing your eyes. But even while you're still operating the world and your sense perceptions are still engaged, you can still have that because it's an inner feeling. You're going, actually, I know that none of these things really matter and they cannot disturb my peace. I'm standing before God's altar right now, even while I'm apparently observing this external world. And that's where he's taking us. This is mind training, that you can be in the world but not of the world. That you can have that connection and you can stay in that deep, calm, peaceful state even while you're still engaged in the world of time and space and sense perceptions are seemingly involved, but you don't make them real. You remain mentally and emotionally at God's altar. That's really the key to all of this. And then, total heaven is only a short step away. God takes the final step. Finally, you'll lay your body aside. The body's gone, perception's gone, and your mind is fully restored to heaven. That's the ultimately enlightened incorporeal state. But while we still have a body, he's saying, well, you can do this. I'll help you to do this. It's doable, and you can have a lot of peace in your life. You really don't have to struggle and strive and strain and stress and suffer. So you're getting a little taste of heaven even while you continue in the body. And every time you rest and you close your eyes, you're going deeper into that. You're going deeper into that inner state, connecting with it. And so then you carry on in your day. Okay, that because that connection has been established, you stay rooted in that, no matter what. Okay, shall we move on to number 3?
Okay. How long can it take to be where God would have you? For you are where you have forever been and will forever be. All that you have forever. The blessed instant reaches out to encompass time as God extends himself to encompass you. You who have spent days, hours, and even years enchaining your brothers to your ego in an attempt to support it and hold its weakness, do not perceive the source of strength. In this holy instant, you will unchain all your brothers and refuse to support either their weakness or your own.
Okay. So anything strike you there or any questions?
Well, it makes it clear that, like, when you get there, it's where you have forever been and forever be. Where it's like you're letting go of that time and space.
You're only letting go of what covered it over, of the veil.
Yeah.
What was there is still there. What was is still and will always be, because it's eternal.
And then the last one, in this holy instant, you will unchain your brothers, because that just comes by de facto, I suppose, and refuse to support either their weakness or your own.
Yeah, so if you've really connected with God, this eternal loving presence, then you no longer will see your brothers as bound in chains. Okay, you spent years chaining your brothers to your ego. So we see our brothers in the ego's light to reinforce the ego's thought system. But you did this. You're guilty. You hurt me. So now we hold a grievance. He's saying if you really let it go, and you find this blessed instant of peace and release, then you unchain your brothers from your ego, because you no longer see the need to see them egoically. And so you're not supporting their weakness, because if you see them as egos, then that's their weakness, or your own. If you see yourself as an ego, you're supporting your own weakness. Okay, so anything stand out for you there? Any questions?
No more questions.
Okay. Move on to number 4. I think it's your turn, Kim.
It's your turn, Jono.
Oh, right. Did you read number 3?
Yes.
Okay. You do not realize how much you have misused your brothers by seeing them as sources of ego support. As a result, they witness to the ego in your perception and seem to provide reasons for not letting it go. Yet they are far stronger, much more compelling witnesses for the Holy Spirit. And they support his strength. It is therefore your choice whether they support the ego or the Holy Spirit in you. And you will recognize which you have chosen by their reactions. The Son of God, who has been released through the Holy Spirit in a brother, is always recognized. He cannot be denied. If you remain uncertain, it is only because you have not given complete release. And because of this, you have not given a single instant completely to the Holy Spirit. When you have, you will be sure you have. You will be sure because the witness to him will speak so clearly of him that you will hear and understand. You will doubt until you hear one witness whom you have wholly released through the Holy Spirit. And then you will doubt no more. Okay, does that make sense? Saying how we've misused our brothers. So we see people as a witness to the ego. They seem to provide reasons for not letting it go. We use people, I mean, remember the ego made up the whole thing. Ego made up people to confirm the separation is real. So whatever people are doing within their ego only serves to confirm the ego's thought system. And so he's saying that you can choose again and choose to see them differently. Choose with the Holy Spirit rather than the ego. Simply recognizes that complete release is given. You're released, they're released. We're all one in God. And doubt until you hear one witness. You have wholly released through the Holy Spirit. So it's saying if you totally forgive one person, then you will doubt no more. So that person takes you to at-one-ment. one person, wholly forgiven, takes you to enlightenment. Quite a thought. Okay, so any
one person takes you to enlightenment.
One person whom you wholly forgive, you truly forgive, completely forgive, takes you to enlightenment. This is what he's saying. You will doubt until you hear one witness. He's talking about one of your brothers, whom you have wholly released through the Holy Spirit. You're totally forgiven them, and then you will doubt no more. So what is he saying then? Saying one person wholly forgiven will take you to enlightenment. You will doubt no more. You will know that the Spirit is there, it's true, it's real, and it's the only thing that you want to honor. Okay, does it make sense? Any questions on that paragraph?
No, no more questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, it's your turn for number 5.
The holy instant has not yet happened to you, yet it will, and you will recognize it with perfect certainty. No gift of God is recognized in any other way. You can practice the mechanics of the holy instant and will learn much from doing so. Yet its shining and glittering brilliance, which literally blind you in this world by its own vision you cannot supply. And here it is, all in this instant, complete, accomplished, and given wholly.
Okay, makes sense. Any questions? Anything stand out for you?
What is the holy instant in this place?
Holy instant has not yet happened to you, yet it will, and you'll recognize with perfect certainty. So it's a moment of complete oneness. So in that moment, you experientially just feel. You feel the oneness, you know the oneness, and you've got a little glimpse of heaven. It's a taste of heaven. And that might just be, I mean, that instant that I mentioned, I think I've told you the story at the Vipassana retreat, where I just got this clarity. It was just like and it really was, I mean, it's so interesting, he calls it an instant, because it really wasn't long at all. I mean, you're talking seconds, I don't know, 10 seconds, 30, I don't know, you lose track of time, maybe a minute, but it really wasn't very long. It was an instant. But in that instant, it was like, I really saw and I understood the whole thing, the whole picture. The course was just like, it all just dropped. And I was like, wow, I just really see this experientially in a way I haven't seen it before. And that's what he's referring to. In an instant. We practice the mechanics of the holy instant, and we'll learn much from doing so. So what does he mean by that? The mechanics of the holy instant. Almost like a process, like some kind of operation or something you've got to do. Well, what he means is the mechanics of the holy instant are when you choose to take a little breath break, you choose to practice his lessons. You choose to do these spiritual practices. That's the mechanics of the holy instant. And you will learn much from doing so. So saying this is good, do it. These spiritual practices will help you. But when you get a moment of realization, like that one I described, its shining and glittering brilliance will literally blind you to this world by its own vision. And you cannot supply that. So it's like it goes beyond your will. It's what's called grace. It's just revealed to you. It's shown to you. So you've done the work. You've done spiritual practice. You've made your mind ready, and then boom! It's revealed. It shows itself to you, and that's grace. And that's something you cannot supply. But in my instance, I'd had to do 9 days of meditation to get there. So there's a lot of conscious, disciplined practice and effort for that experience to happen. But in this instant, here it is, complete, accomplished, and given wholly. You see that it's, the truth is true, it always has been true, and that it's whole, complete, and perfect. That's called grace. It's just given when you're ready. Okay? So any, you understand the holy instant? It's really coming into the now. The mechanics of he's actually talking about here an instant of like a revelation experience. That's what he's referring to.
Would that be an experience of enlightenment? Do you say that?
Yeah. So you get an instant. It's called satori in the East. An instant of like, I just see, I get it, and that can be experienced differently. It could be a complete revelation where time and space just drops away, and you're completely in the light, and you just disappear. David Hoffmeister talks about a couple of experiences he's had like that. It could be an experience like mine where I guess time and space did disappear. And I was lying on a bed, but I wasn't really aware of it. So just like, I just saw this vast, infinite kind of spacious awareness. And it was like no thought for a few seconds, absolutely nothing. But it was just, it was so open and so clear and so light. And then, thought came in very soon after that. But then it was helpful. It was the Holy Spirit saying, yeah, well, this is the truth. This is what you've just seen. And this is what I'm trying to teach you here. That actually this is all just a veil of illusion. And it's all just been used to cover over this pure formless awareness that you've just had an experience of. So then the Holy Spirit came in to show me and like interpret that experience immediately. So he's referring here to the holy instant as this. There's a moment of satori, I guess, would be the Eastern equivalent. A moment of insight, of like enlightened awareness. It's like you just get it, and it's experiential. It's not theoretical, intellectual. It's like I just get it. It's dropping in on a deeper level. So that's what he means by holy instant. But you could take the mechanics of a holy instant is when you're just choosing to practice these lessons to bring your mind back to the now. That's what he calls the mechanics of the holy instant. So doing your daily spiritual practice, you're doing your meditations, you're doing your breath breaks. That's the mechanics of it. And then maybe an experience like that comes as grace to, that's not supplied by you. It just happens when you're ready. To start now.
It would also be a part of the mechanic, right? Because you're doing the passion. The Vipassana you were doing at the time would also be part of the mechanics, right?
Yeah, because it was like, okay, you're going to sit and you do this practice, and there's a practice to it, and it's hour after hour of doing it. And then it was interesting because eventually, like I got to that stage, and you're just physically tired. Your body's like it aches, it's in pain. So I just went, okay, I'm just gonna lie down. I'm just gonna let go of the practice for a moment, and then it happened. So that was kind of interesting because it was almost like a letting go of that as well. The mechanics were necessary to bring me to that point. It was like, okay, I'm just going to lie back, and I'm just actually going to rest.
After it happened?
No, it happened when I because they were like, no, you've got to sit up and not lie down. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do what they recommend. I'm going to follow because it's, I can change it later. I was already starting to say, well, hang on, if I added that in, so I tried a bit of that, but pretty much I stayed on the practice. And it's sitting, and you're sitting, and it's not very comfortable for the body to sit for that long in the posture, for 12 hours a day. And so when I actually just surrendered and I just went, okay, I'm going to lie down because I'm really tired. It's the last day. We're on the last, the next day we came out of the silence. So it's the last lap. I'm just going to, before we do the group sitting, which you can't lie down because it's like you're in the hall and everyone's there. Before we do that, I'm just going to lie down. It was after lunch. I was feeling pretty tired. and physically, just, my back's in spasm, and it's like, okay, just actually let go. And I just let go and I lay down. And in that moment, because I just let go of the practice and everything, it just came. So, that's there's a lesson in there as well, I think. And I actually asked the lady, I said, well, do you think there's a danger of getting too attached to the practice? And she was uncomfortable with the question, because I think she was attached to the practice. And said, no, that's not it. And the truth is, it is. Because it's a practice. It's a means to an end. And at some point, actually, you just need to let go. If the practice becomes another bondage in your mind, then it's not really serving. So in that moment, I just went, okay, I'm just letting go here. I'm just going to lie down. I'm going to stop practicing. And boom, it just happened. This, what he would call the holy instant, just happened. As he said, you cannot supply it. It will literally blind you to this world by its own vision. You cannot supply. And that is actually what it was. It was just like, wow, I'm just seeing in that instant. And it just happened, but I'd done the mechanics of it to allow it to happen. See? So that's what he's saying here. Start now to practice your little part in separating out the holy instant. You will receive very specific instructions as you go along. Just learn to separate out the single second and to experience it as timeless is to begin to experience yourself as not separate. But he's saying here, I'll give you instructions as you go along. Now, this course is your instruction in how to prepare yourself for this moment of satori, or the holy instant, where in the single second, you experience it as timeless, and you begin to experience yourself as not separate. Fear not that you will not be given help in this. God's teacher and his lesson will support your strength. It is only your weakness that will depart from you in this practice. It is the practice of the power of God in you. He's talking about a practice, isn't he? He's saying practice to open yourself up to the holy instant. And you do that by practicing this course, as he suggests. For it is the practice of the power of God in you. So you're inviting the power of God to come into you every time you practice. Use it but for one instant, and you will never deny it again. So one moment of this kind of holy instant, you can't deny it, is life-changing. Who can deny the presence of what the universe bows to in appreciation and gladness? For the recognition of the universe that witnesses to it, your doubts must disappear. So he's saying this kind of a holy instant, a moment of satori, self-realization, enlightenment, revelation, whatever you want to call it, the holy instant, he calls it, is life-changing. You will never deny it again. Use it but for one instant. And I have to say, that experience that I had, that'll remain with me for the rest of my life. I can't forget that. And it's only an instant. It was like, 30 seconds, a minute in my life. And yet it will stay with you for the rest of time. That's what he's referring to. You'll never deny it again. I think once you've seen it, you can't, how can you go back? There's no going back. You can't go, well, I just forget that I saw that. These kinds of experiences make a deep impression on you. And they are, life change. You can change your life in an instant. You have an experience like that, it can just shift you. Use it but for one instant, and you'll never deny it again. So there's many instances of, people who've done this, and in an instant they just changed. remember listening, I mean, to share a practical example. This chap, he was a musician, and he was involved with Sure, and like, and he was into the whole like party scene and cocaine and blah blah blah. And he said one day he walked into in a bathroom. I think they were doing some kind of gig or something. He walked into the bathroom, and there was this young girl there, like in teenagers or early 20s, and she's busy, snorting a line of coke. And his thought was, oh, well, I'll just join her. And then something in him he just went, no. He just looked at her and said, what am I doing? This is just absolutely crazy. Because he was in his 40s or 50s at the time. Like, what, am I still like some kid who's gonna, you know what I mean? It just like something dropped for him in that instant. And it changed his life. He said, I walked out of there and I never did it again. He said, I just left that whole life behind in an instant. It was a moment of like, just something dropped for him. He got an insight. And that, that would be another way of like a holy instant. Just something came over him. It's like, no, enough, no more. And his whole, he didn't need to go and detox, and it was just like a decision, and he just stopped. It was like, enough. I'm done with this. So you can change your life in an instant. Just through the access to this power. One moment of this, as Jesus is saying, can absolutely change your life. Take your life in a whole different direction. Because you've just changed your mind, haven't you? In that instant, you've fundamentally changed your mind about everything, who you are, what you believe, what you think is going to make you happy. And he's saying, well, this can come for you, just practice. Practice the mechanics, which is doing the spiritual practice. That's what he means. Then you open yourself up to something like that happening, and you never know. You can't say, well, now I want revelation. Now I want, no, it's just, it will happen when it happens. But you can practice. That's your conscious choice, day by day. So. Okay. So
just one question. Yeah. Sorry, that last paragraph, Jono, says there, like, okay, so I'll start at number 4. Fear not that you will be given help in this. God's teacher and his lesson will support your strength. There's only your weakness that will depart from you in this practice, for it is the practice of the power of God in you. Use it but for one instant and you'll never deny it again. I was wondering when it says it is only your weakness that will depart from you in this practice. So is it, I mean, I know when people have talked about like ayahuasca, or it was one person had the experience and he had different experiences, but it was almost like, I get the feeling that maybe, you're still kind of, maybe a bit of ego was there in the beginning. He had, it was over several nights. And then maybe he just completely let go, and it was like a completely different, like quite a different experience. But I'm just wondering if that, like when they say it is only your weakness that will depart from you in this practice, maybe it's like, it feels so like almost scary sometimes for ego. Okay, let me get out of this feeling now, I'm just wondering if that's about that.
Yeah, I think, the ego is terrified of awakening. So maybe it's just addressing a fear here. You think you're going to lose something. But actually, it's only your weakness that you're going to lose. It's the practice of the power of God. And from the ego's perspective, doing these kinds of spiritual practices is death. It's the end of the ego. So it's got huge resistance to it. And it can feel like you're losing something. You can get disoriented. You can go like, what's happening? Like, I don't know who I am anymore. What's going on? This is all part of the spiritual awakening. But he's saying it's only your weakness will depart from you in this practice. You think you're losing something that's real, that's of substance, that's of value, but it's not. It's only the ego and its thought system that's departing. But it can feel like you're losing your identity, because you're losing it. You're losing the ego's identity. You're losing a false self. And if you attach to that, then it feels like you're losing something. But he's just saying it's only your weakness that will depart from you. You're losing a false self that isn't true, and that is weakness. That false self is what weakens you. It's not strength. So just have some courage and be willing to practice. Be willing to do this. Have the courage, as that lady said, have the courage to do it. Have the courage to rest. Resting is spiritual practice. Have the courage to do it, because it's going to change your life, and it's not easy. Other people won't like it. Your ego won't like it. There'll be all kinds of reasons why you convince yourself you shouldn't do it, why you can't make the time, I'm too busy, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, they're just excuses to maintain your ego's identity. That's the truth of the matter. What could be more important than knowing yourself? I mean, is there anything else that could be more important than that? If you don't really know who you are, surely like your life should be dedicated to discovering that. And yet we make all kinds of other things more important. Oh, well, I've got to get my quarterly results up. Well, that's more important than knowing yourself? Well, it's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous. It makes no sense at all from a spiritual perspective. But from the ego's perspective, remember, the ego values what's temporary. And it doesn't value your true self. It values the false self. So it wants to keep you in that whole mindset and justify it through this really totally false thought system. And when you see that we live in a matrix of thought, and it's false, the entire thing, everything that's made up this world, the whole corporate structure, government, it's all false. It's a false thought system. None of it has any truth in it. And that's what we're trying to wake up to, is just go beyond all of this and let it all go and find the spirit, our true self that lies beyond it. And then in an awakened state, okay, you might choose to operate still in it, but it's no longer, it doesn't have the power to enslave your mind, because you see through it. It's like, this is just false. It's just a dream. Okay, so it continues. Maybe I'm still working in the system, but I'm not of it. I'm not of that system. I know who I am. What happens is people get consumed by it. As that woman said, she said, I was consumed by it. I identified myself so much with that character who was just a busy doer that I completely lost myself in it. And it eventually just broke down, because her soul was like crying out for some kind of, attention, saying like, listen to me. So what's then necessary is a, complete breakdown in order to facilitate that. But if you do this progressively and systematically, you can awaken while you're on the journey. So you carry on in your corporate job and you just use all your experiences for your awakening. Perfect. Because you're going to get tests, you're going to get challenges, you're going to see the ego coming up. Okay, perfect. But I can let all that go. My true prayer is to forgive all this stuff and use this for my awakening. And what better place to go than into the heart of the matrix to do it? Because it's going to show you all of the falsity so clearly. So you don't need to change the form of it. You just need to change how you perceive it, which I think you're doing. So it's all good. Keep practicing, and then who knows? Maybe at some point it is time to leave. Well, at some point you will leave. Of course you will. Nothing lasts forever. At some point it's like, okay, it's time to do something else. And you just, you'll get the guidance. You'll know. I mean, I'd like to create a values-based system where this values-based management actually gets taught to and inculcated into corporates. And it's something I just haven't had the time. I've got the IP. I haven't had the time to do it. So, if you want to do something like that, and you think you'd like I probably won't have the time to do it, honestly. I've got too much else, because that's a whole nother business. Someone's got to drive that. I mean, I'm already like maxed out in terms of what I'm doing. So maybe in time and future, possibly, but again, that's not a, I mean, it's a fundamental transformation in the way that businesses manage themselves and they measure. That's what's required. That's because I really thought about it 10 years ago. I was like, that's the only thing that's going to work. It's not going to work if you just try and fudge it. If you try and bring mindfulness into an existing system that doesn't measure and manage that way, it's not going to work. It'll just be seen as, oh, well, that's a kind of something on the side. You know, yeah, we'll give our employees the tools, but the mindset hasn't really changed. You need to actually change it systemically. And then the mindfulness, then there's not a conflict. Then there's not a conflict anymore, because the mindfulness totally fits in with the way that you're choosing to measure and therefore to manage the business, and that they're in alignment. It doesn't work if, like, well, we'll kind of tack it on. You can't tack mindfulness onto a broken system and expect it to work. I saw that so clearly in my experience with the clinic, a group of clinics I mentioned. It's like they were trying to introduce, and it's like, it doesn't work. It's like, you've got to actually buy into the whole thing. And they weren't willing to do that. It was like, no, well, yes, maybe it's nice. You know, it was lip service. They weren't willing to go, okay, we actually really need to change our whole business model. Not willing to do that. And the way that we manage, the way that we operate, because that's radical transformation. No, we're just going to kind of carry on doing what we're doing. And so then they don't embrace these things, because if you really start to embrace mindfulness, it is going to change the culture. That's required. You can't keep that old mindset. It's gonna change things. People start to wake up. It changes the culture. Okay, so it's kind of a nice way to round it all off. Come full circle from the start of the conversation. Shall we do a meditation?
Yeah, just need a nature break quickly, Jono.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Okay.
I'll pause the recording. See you in a couple of minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Ready? Okay, then.
I just got some shocking news.
Oh, yeah.
One of my colleagues that recently left my company that I worked with quite closely passed away by a heart attack.
Oh, wow. Okay. What, just now, like in the last minute?
Well, I thought, I've just turned my phone around, and I have a heart, and he took on a more heavy job than what he was in when he was working with me. He knew it would be like that. He's got kids.
How old is he?
He was 47. I actually thought he was maybe a bit older, but yeah.
Well, unfortunately there's an illustration of which we just spoke about. At 47, come on, like that's way too young to be.
I know.
Having a heart attack.
I know
But that's stress. There's nothing other than that's stress.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because, I'm still I take a while to process these things, but so in India, so he's based in India, in Chennai, and I remember he would, because especially when in the height of the COVID wave, in April, May, he would extend invitation to us around mindfulness. They would have these sessions, and then he extended them to us.
Online.
Yeah, so there was actually a Western guy, English guy, but he became I think a Hare Krishna, and they did a session and all around health and wellness and the mindfulness and that, and you would talk about that as well. It's very sad to see that, wow, but he would push himself. I sometimes found they have this cult, unfortunately, and coming out of India where it's so much competition in some of these companies have this high turnover, or it's this competition, so they'll push themselves more in a way, I think. Performance-wise, it's almost like they've taken that kind of overdrive of, from the Western culture when it comes to if it's a corporate that's also in India, like an Oracle, or I'm not even saying that, I just find that it's that there's that culture there of, because of I think there's a lot of competition, there's that push. And yeah.
Well, and then the cost is, early death. It's tragic on the level of form anyway. In truth, he hasn't really died. He's just exited his body, and but on the level of form, so now his kids don't have a father. His wife is widowed. He was presumably a good guy. He was productive for the company. He could have, maybe had another 10, 15 years of work, and it's not a functional way. And there's no doubt. Stress is going to be a huge factor in that. He might have had some genetic predisposition, but the stress. Literally, what did that woman say in the talk? She said it in Chinese. In Chinese, the word for busyness is kill, heart, kill.
Yeah.
The two characters, heart and kill. So it's killing your heart. Busyness. Interesting, eh? And then, well, there you go. Literally, he has a heart attack. That happens all too frequently. My sister's husband died at 35, also heart failure, and he was pushing himself. It was crazy. He was working 16 to 18 hours a day because he's
What
on a
was he
shift
doing?
for corporates. Well, he did shutdowns for companies. So they'd shut down a refinery, and then he'd have to like manage the whole project to get it back up, because they had to clean it and do whatever. And obviously every day they shut down costs them money. So then like drive the guy, it doesn't matter if he's working 18 hours a day. We just want to get the refinery back up as soon as possible, because we're losing $1 million a day or whatever it was, you know. And then, you know, obviously that you can't sleep. I mean, he'd finish work at 11, 12 at night, sleep for 3-4 hours, and then get up at 4 o'clock and go. I mean, like, what? You know, that's just not sustainable.
It's not.
Obviously, it's not sustainable. And yet he did it for a number of years, and then he had a weak heart. He had some genetic condition, but obviously putting it under that kind of stress just stopped. That was it. You know, game over at 35. So
That's awful. I'm so sorry. Jeez.
so that was also, I mean, it wasn't sustainable. The fact that they allowed him to, companies should not allow this. You should go, you cannot work those hours. Sorry, it's not allowed. You at 6 o'clock, you know, you can work 9 till 6 and go home. Go home. You've got to take a break. You cannot work these kinds of hours. It's not healthy for you. It's not sustainable for us as a company, because sooner or later you're going to have a health problem. So they should actually enforce it and say you're not allowed. And if it means you've just got to do your work, you know, later, it stays till the next day. You know, it can wait. Whatever you're doing, it can wait until the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like say with this guy, I mean, he was a manager of like one of these, like an IT company that was growing in India, and you know, they would do like data centers. So it's always that kind of always on, like to some extent we are. Like if a customer calls me at 11 o'clock at night because they've got a system down, although we're not directly in that front line, like we're like a semi-support team. It's like, you can't just switch off, unfortunately. You can't say, no, my hours ended at 6. You can't do that, because it's payment. You work in payments. It's 24/7. You cannot help them. But I mean, I had to phone someone who was kind of getting into bed, although he directed me to someone else who could help, so that it actually worked out. But that's the thing. Like sometimes you just can't switch off.
Well, it's a systemic, you know, it's because of the whole system that we've created. You know, it's like payments, so we can't afford payments to go down because now it's online, because everyone's transacting 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, it's all part of the system.
Always on, always available.
Always on, always available. So then people have to, you know, be always on and always available. But like, why have we created a society like that?
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing's like nuts, really.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. So, you know, if you're in it, I guess you know, you're working within the parameters of it. You've got to do your best, and you can certainly build mindfulness into your own program. If you're working from home, you know, then it's okay. Well, if it happens every now and then at 11 o'clock, I'll just have to deal with it.
I
can manage
not
it,
all the time. So
but you know, let me try and make my own life as sustainable as possible within what is really an unsustainable system. Actually, I mean, our entire system is unsustainable. The way human beings live is not sustainable at the moment. This society that we've created is not a sustainable one, and no one's really addressing that. Politicians, everyone just continues on in the same way until, you know, there's some kind of global catastrophe. It's like, okay, well, you know, it wasn't sustainable. The signs were there all along, and you didn't do anything. So, okay, whatever that may look like. You know, COVID, I think, is part of it. Okay, well, suddenly you've got, you know, a global pandemic because everyone is stressed. You've created a society where people are stressed, their immune systems are compromised, they're living lives that are not healthy, they're ingesting all kinds of toxins. Oh, now you just add in 5G to the mix, and now you're sticking in high frequency electromagnetic energy, which is bombarding people 24/7. Like, what do you expect? Of course, people are going to get sick. It's inevitable because the system is unsustainable. But instead of saying, look, we need a systemic readjustment here, this is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
No, we just blame it on a virus, and then we deal with it on the symptom level. Oh, it's the virus. So, okay, now we're going to do vaccinations and masks and lockdowns, but you're not dealing with the fundamental cause, are you, at all?
Yeah.
Which is, classically how the ego works. Oh, it's that. No. There's a whole process, there's a whole system here that needs readdressing. And humanity needs to really look at it and say, look, we need some fundamental change here in the way we live as a society. And no one's really willing to do that because it takes real vision and real leadership. You need visionary leaders to drive this. And the politicians are not visionary leaders. They're in the pockets of corporates who's saying, well, we just want business as usual, please. So, it's a systemic readjustment that's required. And well, that's easier said than done. How do you do that? But it starts with individuals like you and me saying, okay, enough, it's a change is needed. What can we do? What can we do? And that's honestly what I find inspiring about it. It's like, okay, well, what can you do? You have more power as an individual now than any other individuals at any period in history. One person actually does have the power to change the world quite quickly because of the nature of the systems and technology that we have. So, okay, that's interesting. What can you do then to be the change in the world? That's the question.
Perception.
Well, it's transform. If you can help people to transform their perceptions, if enough people change, then the systems change because the systems are a product of the mind. It's all about changing mindset, which is kind of what I've dedicated my life to. And in the end, that's the only thing you can do. What else? I mean, if you're trying to fix things on the level of symptom, that's not going to work. It's changing mindset. That's the only thing that's really going to be effective. So how do you do that on a systemic global basis? Well, that's the question. I think you got to do it through business. Business is the universal language. If you started integrating these principles into business, then and it starts working, and you see the bottom line results, and you say this actually is more effective, it works better, then the change, the results speak for themselves. And change starts to happen. Okay. So sorry about that, but I guess it's just an illustration of what we described. Someone dropping dead at 47, and you said he's in a high pressure corporate job.
Well, not even that corporate. I think, but it's just a growing company. But his role was very much, like if you're managing an operational role, you get escalations. He was kind of expecting that. I mean, it was like he sounded like he knew what he was getting into. Yeah, but
now he's dead, so.
Yeah, but I mean, there's maybe more to that. Like, it depends how his health was. Like,
who knows? Yeah, but
and his genetic predispositions, and we don't know all of that. But I mean, I'm sure.
No doubt. I mean, you can have genetic predispositions, but your mindset, your ongoing mindset, your lifestyle, and your body's biochemistry then unlock this idea that you're governed by your genes is not true. Genes are part of it, but it's actually
part of it.
It's the sheath. 50% of it is a sheath that surrounds the genes. If you listen to a talk by Bruce Lipton, he goes into all the technicalities of it. But for years and years, people saying, well, it's all genetic. But hang on, they're not looking at how this works, because there's these proteins that cover the genes, and those proteins are locked or unlocked by biochemistry in the body. So your stress levels, which directly affect your biochemistry moment by moment, affect how those genes are now going to be affected, and what influences are going to play on those genes. So it's not just genetics. Like, yeah, you might have that as a potential, but if you are not, if you're looking after yourself well, and you're not stressed, and you do all the right things, then that predisposition is not going to be activated. But if you do the wrong things, then you unlock the genes for you expose them to this negative biochemistry, the cortisol and adrenaline, and then you activate that predisposition, and then it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a high degree of control. Our body, our
Mm-hmm.
minds control our biochemistry, which then controls what happens on the physical level.
Mm-hmm.
This is why mindfulness has been shown to work, because
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to control the mind, which then controls the body's biochemistry, which then controls all of these physical effects.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking about it now, because I think he would have that awareness of, say, mindfulness. But I think he also maybe just still pushed himself because of, like, I mean, he was finishing his master. I mean, this is aside, like having work, family, etc.
Yeah.
Finishing his master's dissertation this year in psychology. It was something he was passionate about. He also did some, I don't know how much he did during COVID, but like he used to like do Saturdays teaching or help, something along the line. So I think he would have had that sort of understanding to some extent, but maybe again, it's the doing.
Yeah, doing, I understand I need to rest, but I never rest. Okay, well, that's not really going to help you very much.
I have that feeling, like, and you would encourage other people, but it's like, I remember, it's just,
He wasn't doing it himself. No.
Maybe, not enough, like, very sad. But maybe there's obviously a reason on a greater level that this happened. Yeah.
Well, no one really dies. I mean, we know that.
Yeah.
So he's just decided to leave his body now.
Yeah.
Often I think it's, remember, death is the ego's way out. If you're really feeling stressed and pressured and whatever, and you're going, I'm just not really coping, but I've got all these responsibilities, and I can't really see a way out of this. Because I'm 47, this is kind of been my life for the next 10, 15 years, then death's quite an attractive option, actually. So subconsciously, like we're all committing suicide. Whether you do that, actively, like you go, okay, I'm going to, actually take a drug overdose or shoot myself, or I just do it, by having a heart attack. It's the same thing. It's a self-destructive energy. So maybe it was just like, okay, that's my way out, have a heart attack, die, and it's end off. And all the problems and the stress just disappear. So, he's probably a lot happier. I'm actually, wow, I've just dropped all of that. I don't have any of that anymore. Just free floating in my incorporeal mind state, and maybe learn some lessons from it. So he's like, well, okay, can see how I went wrong there. So maybe in my next life, I'm not going to do that. I'll become a yogi or guru, and I'll live a very different life. But it's years, it's accumulated. There's no doubt. Like 47, so that if he's been in the corporate world since he was in his 20s, presumably.
Yeah.
That's time. That's like 20, 25 years of a lifestyle of doing this. And that does take its toll, there's no doubt. You do that over time. It's like doing damage on a deeper level. So even if he given up a year ago, he might still have had the heart attack, because it's like that damage is done over that over that long period of time. I had a friend who he would have been in his early 40s a few years ago. I went to school with him, same age, school and university, 41, 42, heart attack. Didn't die, fortunately. He's still alive, but then he just went like he stepped back from the court. He just resigned from his job because he's like, this is killing me. So it's not a very sustainable functional system, unfortunately. And I guess if you're going to operate in it, I mean, the only way to survive it is, well, you got to do mindfulness. You got to build this in to your, because you still have choice. You can still take time out to do this. You can meditate in the morning. You can meditate in the in the evening when you're not at work. You could build in little breath breaks. And maybe if you're a manager, you could actually, inculcate it into your department. So look, this is what we're going to do, guys. We're gonna have some group meditation because it's gonna help us and be a sort of change agent. But a lot of people are too scared. That's going to be frowned upon by top management. So they don't do it. Just do it themselves. So I guess I just ask what you can do. If there's a way you can be an agent for this in your company, then that's what you should do. Because that's being the change you want to see in the world, in your own environment. So maybe you could do online meditations. I'm happy to assist in that regard. There's always a way. But now with Zoom and people working from home, it's actually quite doable. It's like, okay, well, at that time, join, everyone can join, do a meditation, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's one of the things I want to do, for corporates, is have like a half an hour meditation in the day. It's like a power half hour, and you can take a time out at like lunchtime and you can just join. It's happening. Because, technically they could do it themselves, but the problem is they probably won't if they're left to their own devices. You can get recordings and all of that, yes, but okay, you got to make the time to sit. Whereas if it's happening at a certain time, it's online, it's guided, you might actually do it. And if you get into a habit of it, that's the power of it. People are always the recording, but you won't listen to the recording. That's the problem. So that's an idea. It's still, at the moment I'm kind of maxed out. I
to think about that.
It's definitely, I think, and then around that, you could start doing the values, so you could do like a half an hour, power half hour. You could do like maybe a 5-10 minutes chat on the quote for the day. So here's the quote, let's discuss a few principles, record that. So it's a little, nothing more than 10 minutes. And then you do a 20-minute meditation. And people just get a little bit of I got a little bit of so let's say they get the quote in the morning, they get a little breath break with it, and then they do the power half hour to expand on the quote, and then they do a 20-minute meditation. That's a nice little mindfulness program that anyone could join. You just do it on Zoom. If you're working from home or whatever, or if you're working in an office, you could all do it. You could say, okay, it's the power half hour, guys. It's our little bit of mind training. So a little bit of inspiration comes into it, and we're going to do a meditation. And it just becomes part of the way they operate. Every day at 12 o'clock, we stop. And, obviously, if you've got some crisis or you've got a meeting, maybe not. But in the office, generally we don't schedule between 12 and 12:30. We don't schedule meetings because that's time for our power half hour. Everything just gets pushed before or afterwards. Why couldn't you do that? Of course you could. But it needs to be driven by a manager who's really serious about it. That's the. And then I'm sure it would improve productivity. You'd start to see better performance results, because just half an hour a day of mindfulness over 8 weeks, they've done studies, and they've seen that it has a pretty significant effect on people's mindset, on levels of productivity, on things like depression. It really does have an impact, just 20 minutes, half an hour a day. But you need to make it into a system, otherwise people are not going to do it. So okay, here's some meditations, go do them whenever you want. It's probably not going to work. It needs to be systemically integrated. So, I'm planting a seed. Think about it. It's something I need to pilot somewhere. Pilot a program. Say, okay, does this work? As a holistic, you've got the mindfulness component, the power half hour, the breath breaks that I send, the quotes, and then you also got this value system going on that actually backs it up. So now you're managing this whole thing by values, which means that there's not a conflict between the management system and what you're doing. In fact, it's all part of it, all in alignment. And if there's a company that's willing to do that and trial it, then then you're in the game. You can try it, you can get some results, you can get a case study, and then you've got something that's actually happens, not just an idea. It's a practical case study, and then hopefully you can encourage other companies to do it. So there's a whole business. I've no doubt there is a business model there. There's a very profitable business, but to get it off the ground, you need to trial it somewhere. So, whatever, maybe something arises in your company. Who knows? I'm happy to have conversations, do some free meditations, whatever, because something that needs to happen systemically. And at the moment, the art of letting go is really for individuals. It's an individual program.
Yeah.
You actually need.
But it's quite like program. I mean, it's a bit more. I mean, because it's around Course of Miracles, it's like okay.
Yeah, there's a deep spiritual teaching. That underpins it, and that's personal choice. You can't force people to do that. But if you did it through a mindfulness angle, you took away A Course in Miracles largely, and you just made it on inspirational quotes and mindfulness meditation. It's doable, because it's not secular. And if people want to take it further individually, then they can. There's an individual program. Which would then lead them, into a deeper understanding for those. So I think that's, for me, to market the art of letting go, that's sort of the way it's got to go. It's something that people lead into. It's not something that works on a, Google ads, come and join. It doesn't really work. I've tried it. It's more like someone's got to be ready for it. And so I almost need to create an intermediary system where you get people ready for it, from wherever they are. If they do a year of like, okay, I'm getting inspirational quotes and I'm getting breath breaks and I'm doing power half hours. I'm curious. I'd like to know more. Okay, we'll join the masterclass from that point of view. And now you're going to be more ready and more open to it. And then maybe you sign up to that as an individual because you really, you want to take it further in your own right. But in the company's kind of the leader. And then you're talking corporate world, and obviously you charge appropriately. It's not 500 Rand a month. Well, maybe it is for each employee. I don't know. I haven't worked out a pricing model. If there's 20 employees, 500 Rand a month, that's 10,000 Rand a month. It's not that much for a corporate. For your mindfulness program, to invest in your employees. So I don't know. If you're doing it in en masse. The beauty of Zoom and email and WhatsApp and so on is it's scalable. It's like, well, I'm doing the same time. If you're doing one session and everyone joins into that session, then there's no more time. You could have 100 people, 200 people, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so, think about it. Maybe it's something.
I will.
Something that you'd like to.
Maybe.
Like to take on. Because I need someone to drive it, manage it. I want to go back to the UK. Well, maybe I've got to do it in the UK. I don't know, but I've got. It's like you can only do so much. It's like I can't do that, and that's a whole business in itself, and the art of letting go, and I do corporate finance, and it's like, well, again, like I've got to rest. I can't do too much, otherwise it's just like, well, all of what I'm teaching just
goes out the window.
You're not living, you're not walking at all.
You're
not living it, exactly. So ideally I'd like to create systems where you're getting these things are working, and then it's largely passive. That's income coming in, and I'm doing like one session and it's like multiple people. That's the way to do it. But to get it to that is the trick. It takes a lot of effort to get a system going. So, anyway, let's see. Put it in the back of your mind, and as I said, if your company's open to it, I'd be more than happy to chat to the directors, to do a free meditation, to do a presentation, whatever. So like, okay, well, let's try it.
Well, I would think about it from let's just say on a South African level. So, so like talking to our local HR, and then we do it, say the Joburg and Cape Town office. Maybe, so like there's more people in Cape Town than Joburg. So it'll be like more than 100 people. I don't know how many people are working for us now, but you see what I'm saying? So it's like a start and see how that goes.
And I'm willing to do a free trial for a month and say, okay, well, let's try it. Don't pay me anything. Let's do a half an hour Zoom session a day. To get your employees to join, put it out there, and just trial it and see. Does this work? And then if you like it and you want to continue, okay, well, we'll talk about it. Then we can, because otherwise, if I go in with a whole proposal, it's going to be X cost, and they'll probably say no, because it's like then you've got to justify the cost.
It's more of a trial, I think. And then
I'll say to them, I'll give them a free trial. I'll do half an hour Monday to Friday a day. During the day, pick a time whenever you think is going to be best. Lunchtime's not a bad time, but just not early mornings. I don't do early mornings because I work at night. But anytime from lunchtime, mid-afternoon, late afternoon, is a good time. Maybe sort of early afternoon. So just before I do our session starts at 1:30.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. 1 to 1:30. It's a lunchtime. As part of the lunch, and then encourage your employees to take a lunch break. Don't work through your lunchtime. Take the half an hour and rest, so that you can be refreshed for the afternoon session. So take half an hour to eat your lunch and half an hour to do the power half hour, and encourage them to join and see what happens. See what the feedback is.
Exactly. I think that's what you want to see. It's like what the feedback is. It's more.
Does it work for them? Are they going to join or not? Does it? And it's not going to cost them anything. I'll do it for free for a month, just to trial it. And if it doesn't work, no hard feelings. It's some of my time, but unless I put in some time into doing something like this, it's never going to get going. So, okay, I'll trial it, and if it works, then we'll talk in a month's time. Then they've got some results, and maybe people start going, actually, we'd like to continue with this. This actually does add value, and then they're like, okay, well, now there's a much stronger case to continue with it than otherwise. Than if it's just a proposal and it's theoretical, it's an idea. So by all means, motivate it to HR. I'm happy to have a chat with them.
I'm thinking also for early next year, Jono. This is it's also people want renewal.
I think end of the year, we're going to silly season now. It's not the right time to start a new program. Everyone's just trying to get through the rest of the year, wrap up. They're looking for December. Holiday. I've got my 3-week holiday. Holiday.
Yes.
Only 2 months away. Just keep going for the 2 months.
Exactly. I think that will have more
everyone times out. And then they come back in January and they feel a bit refreshed for a few weeks. And then it starts again.
So maybe early next year.
Mid-January, you start, it's a new program, it's a new year. And it's only it's half an hour of my time. I just go, all right, from 1 to 1:30, that's the time. It's got a hard stop at 1 o'clock, at 1:30, because that's when the other session starts. So it's a power half hour, that's it. Once a day, and you see if they like it. I could do some quotes. Maybe I could send the quotes to them because I'm already doing those. So I can create a little WhatsApp group, send out a quote, and it's a start. And let's see. Then they get the quote in the morning. They get a little message with it, and then they can join it at lunchtime. And so there's a little bit of a program, and just trial it and see if people like it. See what the impact is. So I'm most happy to do that, to talk to your HR people, to give them a proposal. But if it's not going to cost them anything, it doesn't need to be anything major. It's like, look, just let's have a chat, put it out there. This is what I can do. If you agree, let's go for it. Try it. 1 month, no hard feelings if it doesn't work out. And if it does, okay, then we'll talk in a month. Try it from mid-January to, mid-February and see. So I'll leave that in your capable hands. And
yeah, I think let's just talk again so that I know how to say position it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Have a chat in the week. Join one of the lunchtimes.
Okay.
Oh, you got to lead the way.
I know. I know.
Or
It's not that I just don't want to. It's just it is also a chat. Yeah.
You get busy, I understand. And you've got things going on.
And it's longer.
Yeah. Well, you could join. Generally, what we do is the meditation at about 2:30. So if you join around 2:30, that's generally when we're going into the med. And then it's half an hour till 3 o'clock. I'm pretty much always done by 3 o'clock. That's it.
All right.
So if you just want the med, you join at 2:30, and then we're pretty much ready to start the med thing. So
cool.
So join Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll have a chat afterwards. You like?
It won't be. It'll probably be later on in the week. Monday, Tuesday. It's always like the busiest days for me in terms of meetings and that. So realistically, probably be more Thursday, Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Just I'll be available. Just message me and say I'd like to join, because I'll make sure I'm available for a little bit of time afterwards. So from 3, I haven't got anything.
Okay.
Anything.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So shall we do a meditation?
Is it going to be a longer one or a shorter one?
I can make it a shorter one if you like.
Is that okay? Sorry, it's
okay. Yeah, whatever you want.
Past 5.
We'll just meditate on the lesson.
Okay. Thank you.
And in the evenings, just to let you know, we've decided to shift it so that in the first part of the evening session, we do the check-in for 20 minutes or half an hour, and then we do meditation.
And then
so
after
then
that,
by like 9:45, 9:45, you'll be done if you want to stop there.
Yeah. Okay. So
that seems to work better for Sue and John, who seem to, well, it's basically the 3 of you, the 2 of you and them that are doing it at the moment. So then you could log off then. You could say, okay, well, I've done the meditation, stop at 9:30 or 9:45, rather than going on to do the reading. Okay, so you want to put yourself on mute?
Thanks.
Okay, so just making yourself comfortable. Sitting with your feet shoulder width apart. Cup your hands in your lap, keep your back straight, close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises, chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle that locks the energy in. Feel the energy rising up your spine, into your heart center, one hand in your heart. Feel the energy up into the crown of your head. Another sip of air in the top. So it's a maximal inhale breath. Just pause. And just check in and scan your mind. So just noticing any thoughts, any emotions, sensations going on in the body. If you notice anything that feels at all limiting, contracted, constricting, restrictive, unpleasant in any way, just observe it casually. Usually these are forms of stress Stress is just fear, mental disturbance, maybe grievance related to the past. So notice any scraps of fear, any bits of anger, frustration. Just breathe into those. Imagine you breathing in a beautiful golden or white light into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the light. And just rest in this. Say, I rest in God. I rest in love. I rest in God or love today, and let Him or it work in me and through me, while I rest in Him. I rest in it in quiet and in perfect certainty. Now as you exhale, just have a sense of dropping away. All the negativity, thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Just releasing them, the breeze of your breath, to the nothingness they really are. From the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. Rest here in the peace of God for a few moments in these gaps between breaths. Notice gaps open up a space in your mind. They are a portal to eternity and infinity. Smile. This is the holy instant we talked about. Just a little gap in the mind where infinite, spacious awareness arises in your awareness. And breathing in again. Nice deep breath in through the nose. Imagine you breathing this light, beautiful golden or white light into the stomach, blowing up the stomach like a balloon to your heart center. The second phase of the breath, clench the sphincter muscle, locks the energy in. Feel this column of golden or white light flowing up the spine into your heart center. Put all the hand in your heart, connecting with your heart space. And drawing the energy all the way up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. Say to yourself, I am as God created me. I am as love created me. Not sometime in the past or the future, but right now. Breathe that source energy in to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. You can imagine it as a golden or white light. If you imagine well, visualize well. If you don't, just feel a sense of lightness in your mind and your body, just being uplifted. I am as God created me. I am as my source created me. I am God's son or love's extension. Today I lay aside all sick illusions of myself and let my Father tell me who I really am. And so just as you exhale, lay aside and let go of these sick illusions of yourself. And these show up in many ways. Can be fear around the life situation and what's going to happen in the future. So it's a personal self in fearing, grievances, attack thoughts. Anything that makes you seemingly separate from other people is a sick illusion of yourself. Instead, just let your Father or your source, this perfect, pure, loving awareness, Just open your mind to itself, to who you really are. Nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do. Just breathe, relax, be still. And breathing in and out through your nose. Just observe the subtle sensations of the breath. Flowing into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. Use the subtle rising and falling of your stomach and chest. Just bring your mind completely into the present moment. Focusing on the subtle sensations of breath, particularly on your nostrils, area in your nose and just below your nose, between your nose and your upper lip. Focus all your attention on that area. To narrow your focus, bring it completely into that present moment. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, and be still. Rest in God. Rest in the loving presence, the loving source of your being that created you. In the next couple of minutes of deep silence. And when any thoughts come in, observe them casually. No, they're not permanent, they're ephemeral, they're just coming and going, shifting and changing, just drifting by. Like cloud patterns. And no power to obscure the eternal light. The eternal sky, the true awareness and the light of your source, which shines through it. So just blow them away. Lay them aside. Use your breath to help you exhale. A sense of releasing them and just transcending into that spacious awareness. This is the blue sky of your true awareness that is permanent and eternal. And there's a light that shines through it. The light of love. Your source shines through that awareness to inspire you, to make you feel very happy, very peaceful, very calm, very joyful. Smile, just allow yourself to experience this peace, this joy, passes all understanding. Another couple of minutes of deep silence. Think nothing and just be the next 2 minutes. So very gently, just bring your awareness back from this deep space, place in your mind, rest. Rest of God. And bring it back on the count of 3 to an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises, chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Feel the energy rising up your spine, your heart center, the crown of your head, clenching the sphincter muscle, pausing at the top of the inhale. And you smile. Scan your mind again, notice any thoughts, any emotions going on. Notice anything that's not serving you, that's negative in any way, just observe it casually. Remind yourself that I rest in God. And I am as God created me. I rest in God or love, and I am as God or love created me still. These illusions do not affect that at all. And so you exhale. Just letting it all go. Dropping all of those like cloud patterns, blowing them away with the breeze of your breath. All of those stomach into the spine. And then just come to rest. A few moments in the stillness. On the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what else you're feeling. Your body feeling and touching. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. Notice that. Noticing all these things. Very calm, surrendered state. Not naming anything, judging it, labeling it. In any way. Just allowing it to be. Notice what you're hearing. Okay, notice the sounds just arise and then they subside. And as you notice the impermanence, temporary nature of all sensations, you also come to an awareness of what's permanent. Underlying that, there's a permanent state of being. This is the rest of God. This is the true identity as God or love created you. Hopefully you've connected with quite deeply over the last 20 minutes or so. So on the count of 3, open your eyes. And you're going to stay connected. So even though you've opened your eyes now, just notice that underlying state has not really changed. There's still that underlying peace, calm, certainty, quietness. There's a connection to a presence. It doesn't matter what you look at. So just observe various objects. Just pick randomly a few objects. Focus on them for a few seconds each and then move on to something else. Notice that actually it doesn't matter what you're looking at. Your underlying state is the same. If you're not naming these things or judging them or labeling them in your mind, then it's the same. It's all identical. And that state of mind is known as samadhi. It's the sameness of perception in the Eastern tradition. Here's the enlightened state. This is, if you're in this state, this is what it means to pray without ceasing. That your underlying awareness is rooted in your being and you're not naming, judging, labeling, interpreting continuously the world of your senses. So that's what I wish for you for the rest of the afternoon and evening, that you pray without ceasing by just being in this underlying state of quiet and calm. And I hope this meditation session has helped you connect with that quite deeply and to rest in God and realize that you are as God created you. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and today's session. So thank you, Kim, and namaste.
Thank you, Jono.
My pleasure. See you in the week.